Broadcasting from the Blanchardstown Centre, this is Phoenix FM.
This is 92.5 Phoenix FM, community radio for Dublin 15.
Hey everybody, it's JB Jeremy Borash, and you are listening to Darragh O'Connor on the...
Welcome to the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans who don't hate wrestling.
Hello everybody, welcome to Phoenix 92.5 FM. This is the run up to Christmas, and boy do we have a show for you here on the Wrestling Rewind, the only wrestling podcast by fans that don't hate wrestling. We have an absolute Christmas miracle for you here tonight. My name is Darragh O'Connor, and I'm joined by the one, the only, Mr. 1-0. You know him, you love him, Mr. Martin Harty. How are things, Martin?
I'm nervous, Darragh.
Boy,
I'm nervous.
Go on, tell me.
I'm really worried for Mercedes Moné. I'm worried for her safety because it's a very dangerous time to be a CEO.
Oh, I thought, well, I thought it was because, you know, she's starting her own chants and people are booing her, but, you know.
Well, I don't mind that because she's a heel, so yeah, boo away. But no, it's just a dangerous time to be a CEO, you know.
Maybe a brand shake-up there.
Maybe change that, yeah.
To
maybe maybe she can come out and people can chant like head of a non-profit.
Yeah, that's fair. But yeah, okay, that's
sorry.
That was a good one.
On you.
That was a good one. But no, we are going to jump very much back in the time machine this week because this popped up on the timeline and I had to. You know, we've been jumping back and forward to TNA. We haven't really done that many shows, and anytime we do a show, it's usually because they're really bad and I think they're really funny, or they're really good and we need to watch them. But this one is kind of like a gem that I forgot about, and it's also Christmas themed, like very Christmas themed. So
this one is a gem in the sense that diamonds are made by putting a tremendous amount of pressure on coal. And this one just hasn't been turned into a dime. This is like Darragh called this show like the wee Christmas treat for you. This is very much the coal in your stocking. What listeners, whatever yous did something wrong.
Well, look, when so this popped up, I think it was on like Legends of Wrestling or something on Facebook, and I was just like, oh my god, I forgot about this show. This show was a thing that happened. And then when I was looking through the card, I'm like, oh, this show is designed for the 4-hour podcast. There's never been a show so perfect that has everything. This show has everything. It has Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards, Black Rain, Raven looking really unlike Raven. It does have the best version of Christian Cage. Has the Motor City Machine Guns.
Very good Motor City Machine Guns, yep.
Absolutely. Scott Hall just didn't show up, so it's completely on brand for Scott Hall.
It has Scott Hall by not having Scott Hall.
It has, as you said, a Samoa Joe pipe bomb in the middle of the show.
Samoa Joe drops a pipe bomb. It has an absolutely a divas match that would put 1990s WWF to shame, would blushes from the 1998 WWF divas over what goes on in this match.
It's so wonderful, and it starts with Tomko as well, which is even better.
That's the first thing I had down in my notes. I sat down to watch this show, and the lights up, black fades out, and the first person I see is Tomko, and I was like, that's why Darragh wanted to watch it.
It just has everything. So Christmas very much came early for me when I remembered this show existed. So that's why we're covering it this week. It's TNA's Turning Point from 2007. So we are going to get into that. But Martin, before we get into that, how are you doing, sir? It's been kind of a crazy run up to the end of the year in general. Like in general, but also in wrestling, there's so much kind of coming and going as well. Is there anything on your radar before we jump in the time machine?
No, like you say, it's been mad, and we haven't been able to do shows for a couple of weeks with different things. So we've kind of missed like a couple of big pay-per-views. We've missed Full Gear, and we missed I think WWE had Survivor Series, did they?
They did, yeah. I'll be honest with you. I saw Full Gear. We will get back to that because I have like a notepad full of notes on that, and I haven't watched Survivor Series yet. So we are going to do those eventually. But we haven't.
So there has been a lot happening. But do you know what? Rather than rushing through and trying to catch up and everything, I love this. I think that it's better just wipe the slate clean and just take our time, really dissect, really get into blow by blow. Let's disseminate and critique this Turning Point 2007.
Absolutely fair. And look, we will get into Full Gear. We will get into WWE stuff in time, but this takes precedence, guys.
We're the Wrestling Rewind.
Exactly.
So we do stuff in the past. So
exactly.
Full Gear
totally works.
2024. The review is coming up in 2036.
Perfect. There we go. Eventually. That is the name of the game here.
Poor Darragh just saw his life flash before his eyes there going, am I still going to be doing this with this half-wit in 2036?
Well, that is the dream, Martin. And speaking of which, we had our Spotify wrap. So kind of some backstage stuff. We had our Spotify wrap this week. And obviously people are posting what they were listening to, what they want. But when you do a podcast, you get Spotify wrap for creators. And I want to genuinely thank everybody who listens to us on YouTube. Our numbers have been great there. A lot of people subscribe, really do appreciate it. But everyone who listened on Spotify, we genuinely appreciate that. That it was crazy to see the amount of people that listen to us, where they listen to us, that they continue to listen to us. That's also really awesome. So thank you so much to anybody who checks us out on Phoenix FM, the True Penny channel, checks us out on Spotify every week or on YouTube. We genuinely appreciate it. It's really, really cool to see.
Massively. It's very humbling. It's like Darragh said, once you've gotten the kind of numbers and see, we've almost doubled our followers. What was it, 97%?
97% increase. Yeah, it's huge.
Like, we're sitting here talking about how, like, when we do these shows, there's a kind of a sense of freedom to them because in our heads we're just shouting into the void.
Yeah.
But now there's people in the void. How's life in the void, everyone? I hope it's going well for you.
And that's the thing, sometimes we do shows live, sometimes we don't. We more than likely don't because it just kind of lines up for our schedule. But that's why, like, the best way to reach out to us is underneath the videos on YouTube, where you can just comment and we'll respond to them, or or email or social media as well. So we do genuinely appreciate it because it's very, very cool, but also very weird to see that because you're just like, oh, there's people out there who listen to the show, and it's cool
even if it's just to give us abuse, comment. But what we would say is, like, if you're going to give us abuse, like, make it funny, creative abuse we can read out on the show.
Because then we have content, and that's what it's about.
Exactly. Save us having to come up with words from our own mouths, like paupers.
There you go. But again, if this is the first time checking this out and you're like, what are you talking about? Go over to Nerd to Know Media, subscribe to the podcast on all the social media platforms or the podcast platforms on YouTube. It's all there. If you type in Nerd to Know Media or go to nerdtoknowmedia.com, you're able to find everything there. And
there was even a small number of people, I'm led to believe, who had us as their top podcast.
Yes. So thank you to those people.
Well,
that's
Darragh
awesome.
would like to say thank you to those people. I would like to say to those people, seek help immediately. Immediately. Whatever is wrong with you, the answers cannot be found here.
We're still waiting for someone to join the Rellik tier on the Patreon, which of course, or the Rennet tier, which of course is tenor spelled backwards. Backwards.
That's going to be a day.
That's going to be a day. It is.
Like, we're going to make a pretty big deal out of the first person who signs up to that. So
you're going to get a video and everything. It's
you wanna
100%.
If you want to be the North Star in our Christmas sky, like That's the one to sign up for.
And if you want to sign up for any of it, including the X-Pac Euro, you can go over again to nerdtoknowmedia.com and the links are there as well. But I had to get that out of the way because that was pretty cool. It was a really, really cool thing to see. But we are going to jump back in the time machine, Martin, and we're going all the way back to December 2nd, 2007 for Turning Point by TNA Wrestling, 2007.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
The tagline is Silent Night, Bloody Night. From the Impact Zone, Orlando, Florida. Attendance was 900 people. And of course, on the poster, one of the greatest posters of all time, Black Rain, Judas Nasius, and Abyss.
I'll tell you what, 900 people, like, you know, if you were on Twitter, that kind of attendance would be scoffed at and people would be making like snobby comments about it. But those 900 people, here's not great as this show was, they were rabid the whole evening.
Here's the thing, right? The Impact Zone didn't hold more people than that. So TNA's greatest strength at this time was they knew what they were catering for. Small arenas, there's actually nothing wrong with running small arenas. It's a good idea because you have that rabid base. But again, this was it.
And I know we're doing the rewind, so I'll be very quick. I don't want to be talking modern stuff, but AEW from 2025 onwards have changed their setup, like their screens and scaffolding and lights and all that, and they're going to be doing smaller arenas. So
we've been saying this for ages. Tony, thanks so much. We'll take the check. We were saying this for
10% of every show.
We were saying this for months. You know?
I think it'll be a massive improvement.
Oh, for sure. That's what you do. You don't have to. I don't want to muddle this too much, but the lessons should have been learned when TNA ran or tried to run the Tree Arena. I was there. It was a disaster. They had they had an eighth of the arena, right? I've never seen so much tarp outside of some of the stuff you'll see in the AEW arena shows. So there does come a point where you have to kind of readjust and figure out, right, well, all right, we have our core audience, let's cater for that and let's scale down to it. And TNA did it.
Conversely, you went to those run of TNA shows in England last year.
Exactly, very much.
And they were great.
Unbelievable. But that's where we really kind of nailed it in, and we're like, okay, this is what this is the way forward. This is what AEW have to do to kind of build up to it as well. And look, I don't know why people look down on it. It's like there's a difference between filling a 1,000-seater venue and having 1,000 people in a 10,000 seater venue. They're two totally different things.
Completely.
It's wild, you know.
That's why, again, I didn't mean to pull us into modern stuff.
No, but it's
genuinely meant it as a compliment that the 900 people who were there, were rabid the whole night. Whatever else you can say about this show, you cannot say it didn't have an atmosphere. They
got lucky because sometimes with the flip side of this was it wasn't paid people, right? So you didn't pay to go in the Impact Zone. So sometimes you'd get a weird crowd with the Impact Zone. You're 100% right. The crowd that we got here actually kind of wanted to be there.
It seemed to be
actually wrestling fans,
wrestling crowd.
Yeah. So it was.
The only other thing is, there was two things I wanted to say. So the tagline was Silent Night, Bloody Night.
Yes.
Was there a Silent Night, Bloody Night match that we reviewed? I'm almost certain that there was another TNA pay-per-view we reviewed where they had a Christmas, where they had a match. Do you remember where they had the a Christmas tree made out of barbed wire?
They did. Yeah, they did. That was the first appearance of Rellik on the show.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they've obviously copied the tagline for this show from that
match.
And again, it always baffled me that you would call it Silent Night, Bloody Night instead of Silent Night, Violent Night. At least it
makes way more sense.
Right.
I have to say though, they started off the show with this great version of Silent Night, Holy Night, and for some reason it worked. I don't know. It was very
Gotta say, man, all these TNA shows you've been making me watch, the opening video packages are genuinely always really good.
Yeah, it's the Undertaker effect, where from a video package it makes it look so much better than it actually was. You know,
I love that. That's the Undertaker. The Undertaker effect.
it's just like, okay, yeah, it's like, that was great. What did you see, the match or the video package? The video package is like, oh, then it was unbelievable. Watching it, the very different things. But yeah, no, that was, I have to say, the show opened up really, really well. The video package was great. The music was awesome. It was like, because sometimes it can be very hit or miss with TNA. And when they get it, they really got it. Like when they used Chris Jericho's Enemy, you know, Fozzie's Enemy, that was a really good music choice when they'd use it. But sometimes they'd just be like random generic jobber music. But this does seem to work quite well. Now, the wheels didn't really fall off this one. They did eventually fall off it, but it started off quite well. And it started off actually really quite well, because
before you get into the match, because I do want to be positive about the match, the only other thing I wanted to mention was that on the video package, because it's like Christmas themed and all that, they refer to the date of the show as December 2nd Eve. Like Christmas Eve.
I missed that one.
So I'm like, well, that'd be December 1st, wouldn't it? But it's not December 1st. It's December 2nd. So what are you talking about?
I missed that one completely.
Man, I couldn't believe it. I did the same. I wound it back, but yeah, definitely. It at the start of it, it's like doing it all. You know, worlds will collide, bones will be broken. You know, blood will flow on December 2nd Eve. And I was like, that's December 1st. What are you talking about? Anyway, sorry about that. I just needed to get that off my chest.
No, that's fair. That's fair. I completely missed that one. So we had a tables match with Team 3D with Brother Ray holding the X Division title, which was weird. With Johnny Devine. Johnny Devine looking like the most creative wrestler ever. And then they were going against Jay Lethal and the Motor City Machine Guns.
This is my first time in the TNA pay-per-views we've been doing where I've gotten to see the Motor City Machine Guns as a official tag team.
Yeah.
So seen lots of their singles matches, seen maybe the first match where they teamed up, but they weren't officially
the Guns yet.
This is my first proper Guns match, so I was very excited about this.
Unfortunately, the tables that they used did not help them. They weren't the Japanese ones that never broke. They weren't the WWE ones that broke when they were supposed to. They were like a weird in between where the legs would break, but the table wouldn't break, and that happened more than once during this match. I'm like, oh lads, what are you doing? So.
Now, there was
I don't want to hold that against this match, but it happened at least 6 or 7 times where the legs would just go and nothing else would happen.
Like, surely there should be an industry standard. Surely there's a table maker out there who says, look, I'm not tribalist, I just make wrestling tables.
Yeah.
And they're really sturdy and they'll hold a 300-pound man, but they'll also break whenever someone jumps
when you need them to break. Yeah, like
and
that's a very good point. I never understood why they didn't.
To everybody.
Why they never had that. You know, it's like again, this was before AEW, so there was WWE and they were using tables a lot at this time. And there was obviously Ring of Honor, right? So you think they'd be like, hey, let's do this. But now, there's no industry standard. Like you look at AEW, the table's going to be weird. You look at WWE, table's going to be its own kind of weird. And in Japan, those tables are just never breaking. So it's like,
in Japan they were like, we need tables for the match. All right, what kind of table? I'm just doing my own accent because I was going to do a Japanese accent. I was like, that'll just come across very racist.
That's fair. It's a safe bet there. Safe bet there.
The approach in Japan was clearly, well, this is Japanese wrestling. It's obviously, we take it incredibly seriously. It's a highly prestigious sport, or that's the way we treat it over here. So we want, obviously, 2 inches of mahogany reinforced with the hardest steel you can find.
They're just like, hey, we have a table out that we use for catering. Let's use that. That's what they use. But
we have a table that all the incredibly heavy lighting equipment is stored on. So let's.
Surely we can just go through that, right? But yeah, I would have taken that over the tables just collapsing constantly, because you could tell that one with the 6-sided ring, it's kind of hard to work the match, and the lads have said that. But when the table isn't cooperating at all, Team 3D get really, really exposed in the worst way at several times in this. Like, they're trying to do the 3D, and that table is just not cooperating at all.
There's also, I think it might be one of the saddest sights in wrestling when someone's on a table and instead of the table breaking, it just like one of the legs gives and it kind
slides.
It slides down the side,
yeah.
and you can just see the guy laying on the table, and the table has kind of gently tipped, and he's slid down, and you're looking at his face, and you can tell he's thinking, "Do I sell this?" Like when I slide down here and my bum gently touches the mat, should I be like, "Ugh"?
There's a bit where Jay Lethal is working with Johnny Devine, and he's like hitting him with the kendo stick, and every time he moves, the table just slowly slides down. And you're like, oh, dude, I can't believe they didn't replace the tables, but they probably only had a set amount. Like, we have like 10, so they had to make it work. But yeah, it's unfortunate because this match was a good match, but the thing that like took it down was its gimmick.
And in fact, there was actually some really good use of the tables. They did a thing in this match that I really appreciated, which you don't see a lot anymore, which was using the table as a weapon, not to put people through, but like the Guns came up with some really cool creative ways of using the table itself, like to hit people with. They did an awesome trick where they were stood outside the ring, and they kind of goaded, who was it? It was Johnny Devine. They kind of goaded him into doing a dive out of the ring. So they were outside the ring, and the two of them picked up each side of a table, and they looked as if they were trying to put the table in the ring. So Johnny Devine hits the ropes, and he's coming in. He's thinking, I'm going to drop kick that table. The two of them are holding, and like it's going to absolutely bust them. And then whenever he gets close, they just tilt it up, and he dives out of the ring clean under the table and just busts into the security rail. So, like, when it came to people like not having to be put on the table and lay there, there was some genuinely really creative spots, which I appreciated, because one thing I've always loved, and it's something, there's like amazing wrestling stuff you remember from the past, and you're like, why does nobody do that anymore? Yeah. Such a simple thing, but it was all so cool. How come nobody's picked it up? Mick Foley used to always do this thing where he would like lift a table with like the legs and all still folded, and basically what he'd do is he'd suplex the table, but just onto someone who is laying behind him.
Al Snow used to do it as well.
Why is nobody nowadays doing that?
I've no idea, but one of the things that I really wish didn't happen here was the ending of this match, where Team 3D, who are known for putting people through tables, that's their whole thing, rearrange Divine and Lethal to like lie and say, well, look,
it's the Eddie Guerrero DQ finish,
but there was no reason. There was no reason.
Nonsense
There's no reason
version
for it
of it you've ever seen.
Like, the Eddie Guerrero thing made sense because that was his gimmick, to lie, cheat, and steal, Yeah. And it was usually during a normal match. This is the Dudley Boys.
So for anyone who hasn't seen it, this match ends with Jay Lethal, by the way, doing his impeccable Black Machismo gimmick. If you haven't seen it, it's basically what if the Macho Man was black, and it's incredible. Like, it sounds daft, but it's amazing. But basically, he puts Johnny Devine on the table, big impressive elbow, like about 3/4 of the way across the ring, puts him through the table. But then the Dudleys Team 3D come in and hit them with the belts and then rearrange it so that Jay Lethal is laying in the broken table and Johnny Devine's on top of him, and then they wake up the referee, right? So it's already stupid. It already makes no sense. But the whole point, the whole way through this match, we've been constantly told that, you can't just fall through the table. You can't like if you dive at the table and someone moves and you go through the table, that doesn't count. Like the referee has to see you put someone through the table. And you're constantly sold this the whole match. And then you have this end where the referee just wakes up and goes, a broken table. Well, I guess these guys won.
In a normal match, that makes sense. In a tables match with the Dudleys, look, anyone else I could have accepted it because it's not their gimmick.
Yeah.
The Dudley Boys gimmick at this point is not working. It's three things. The what's up spot, right? The 3D and the tables. That's it. That's all they have.
And the thing is, they had hit them with the belts. They'd taken the belts into the rings and they'd hit them. So the Motor City Machine Guns and Jay Lethal, they were all down. They were all out. So you could have just woken up the referee and then put one of them through a table.
It's so silly. I
bet you that pay-per-view crowd going to a TNA pay-per-view with the Dudleys in a tables match would have loved to see like a 3D through a table or something.
That's what I'm saying. The match was undermined by silly stuff with the tables, but then they still would have been disappointed because they didn't get a 3D through a table to finish the match. Silly. So silly. 15 minutes of nothing. And it's unfortunate, but the guns are great. So
yes,
it is what it is.
They are. And absolute, even at this early stage, absolute masters of like innovative, creative double teamwork.
Look, one of the best calls that I've heard in a long time. They're your favorite tag team's favorite tag team.
Yeah.
And, it's one of the best calls I've ever heard. And it's so true. The guns are just unbelievable. Hopefully next time we see them when we do a TNA run, it won't be.
Look, it sounds so strange to say it because their style is so different. But whenever I watch them, man, I get big Heart Foundation vibes off them.
Yeah. Oh, well,
I think it's just because Brett
how well they work together.
Anvil, yeah. And they would do. And look, maybe by today's standards it wouldn't be considered, but by like Heart Foundation wasn't even the 90s, it was the 80s. And a lot of the stuff they were doing was really innovative, like double team stuff at the time. So I don't know what it is, but whenever I watch Motor City Machine Guns, I get a lot of Young Bucks from them, and I get a lot of Heart Foundation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Like the Young Bucks thing is obvious because that's who inspired them. And the Heart Foundation, I mean, that probably inspired, but the Young Bucks were inspired by the Guns, and the Guns were probably inspired by the Heart Foundation. So it does make an awful lot of sense,
Yeah, you'd imagine somewhere down the line that we're fans of the Heart Foundation.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And like even when Generation Me were in TNA as Generation Me, the Bucks, the same tag team, they were working with the Guns. So a lot of it would have rubbed off, It's just unfortunate that this is the frustrating part about TNA around this time. They had such great talent, but they would undermine themselves with stupid stuff. And
unbelievable.
It's very annoying that they did that. But what's more fascinating about this really is the backstage stuff, right? So this pay-per-view was very much built around the return of the NWO. Not called the band yet, that comes later, but the return of Scott Hall and Kevin Nash being a thing. And
you can tell, so for anyone who doesn't know, basically, like we'll talk about it in more detail in the main event, but Scott Hall basically no-shows this, doesn't show up, and you can tell that it's like a last-minute thing. He just hasn't shown up because all the video packages, all the promotional stuff, everything all includes Scott Hall.
I wouldn't be shocked if they sold a bit of Scott Hall merchandise
Oh,
on the way in. Yeah, they were fully committed to this. And
outside t-shirts with the WCW logo scraped off.
Look, I don't know. I wasn't there. I can't confirm that, but I wouldn't be shocked if Don West didn't have one of his specials, with Scott Hall merch in there.
A big box of Razor Ramon t-shirts.
So, that was it. Because everything about this, they were banking on this. And what's weird about this promo is they're still like, oh, he could show up. We don't know if he will or not yet. We'll just pretend like he is. And it's a very awkward show.
Scott Hall, he's
it's an awkward. It makes the show so awkward because it's going, well, he's not here, but we can't let on yet. And this will hang over this entire show like the sword of Damocles, where it's like, okay, what's going on?
And to be fair to them, this is a live pay-per-view.
Yeah.
And look, we are probably going to rip some of this to pieces, but the guys who went out there and had to cover doing stuff on the fly, you'd imagine most of these promos, backstage promos and stuff were done on the fly. They did a hell of a job.
Yeah, they absolutely.
You're talking about, I know seasoned professionals but you're talking about lads who on a major pay-per-view live were told, everything we've planned has fallen apart. I need you to do 2 minutes on camera now. And they did it, so fair play to them. But
the next match, I really can't defend here. Because it's weird, because usually the women's division, the Knockouts division in TNA was always one of the best parts of the whole show. But at this point, your X Division champion is Brother Ray Dudley, which is weird. And the women's belt is defended later on now with Gail Kim and Awesome Kong, but the rest of the show, the women they didn't really click. And this is one, Angelina Love and Velvet Sky weren't the best ones in there. Angelina Love usually was, but infamously Roxy Lotta Love, terrible, really bad. She's really bad. She was infamously bad. She would later be known as the Voodoo Queen or Roxy. Never good. And with ODP, this match, just nothing about it worked. It's not the worst wrestling match that you'd see in TNA.
Is this ODB's? Is this her debut, or is this her? Is she fairly new at this stage? She's
fairly new at this stage. So a lot of them haven't found their groove just yet. But really, at this point, this entire division was literally held up by Gail Kim and Awesome Kong. So and these women in here, even Roxy, they would pair them up at random points. So you'd have Gail Kim going against any one of them, or Awesome Kong going against one or two of them, and that would allow this whole thing to function. And it just showed the minute you took them away, the complete ground just fell out of it.
Roxy, for anyone, and I'm not even a seasoned TNA fan. My knowledge of TNA comes from what we watch for the show. But even I know that Roxy could spend 20 years in the Heart Dungeon, and
she would regress. She'd regress.
She'd regress. She'd regress.
That's the thing. You have to give them credit, because I think they knew that they only had two women that could do it, right?
No, but not even so. Roxy, just God love her, whatever she's doing now. I don't know how she got on a major wrestling promotion on TV for as long as she did. I have no idea, because I don't mean to seem crude, Ren, but it's not as if you could even say, oh, she's only there for her looks. Is she related to someone, or?
I honestly don't know. There had to be some kind of, there had to be something there.
Maybe the voodoo thing is real, and she had. But anyway, so yeah, Roxy's not great. Velvet Love, the tag team, both of them are. I'd look this up. Both of them at this stage are really green, and I mean not just new to TNA, new to wrestling.
Yeah, no, they Angelina Love would become fantastic, and the beautiful people would be a big part of TNA. Velvet Sky would never really get, to be honest with you, she'd never get better. She'd just get less bad. Madison Rain and
Still
Angelina
only
Love.
the second worst person.
Yeah, Angelina Love and Madison Rain would be the two workers of the beautiful people. But no, this was very green. Very, very green. And the match was 6 minutes that you could comfortably skip and not miss anything.
And then ODB. ODB is pretty good. But this is a comedy match. So, like, there is... In fact, I wouldn't even recommend skipping it because it's such a strange thing. So there is little to no wrestling in this, but there's a whole pile of other stuff. So ODB gets a wedgie that leaves very little to the imagination. Then the referee gets a wedgie. Then Velvet Sky rides ODB around the ring like a horsey. The commentary team go full Rellik. Do you remember the first time they introduced Rellik? And they kept telling you, which is killer spelled backwards. Rellik, that's Rellik. Whoa, where did you get the name? Hey, it's killer spelled backwards. Every time ODB comes out, they keep going, oh, what does ODB stand for? I know we're pre-Watershed, but we'll say one dirty biddy, basically. But every 2 minutes we hear ODB, which stands for one dirty biddy. Like, it's...
Well, look, to be fair, at this time, there's only two ways you can call a match like that. There's that way. There's three ways. There's that way. There's Jerry the King Lawler, and then there's the character Mark Madden. So
the legally distinct
character. Yeah.
Mark Madden. Well, look, I'll tell you what. If I was at this show, I can imagine being there live and having a rake of pints in me, and ODB and Velvet Sky, flicking each other's nipples and thinking this is hilarious and having a great laugh. But I have to tell you,
that's what happened on the show, by the way. Just because I'm not editing it, that's what happened. That's not a joke. That's an actual call of the match. Sorry, go on.
That's not my fan fiction or anything.
No, that's a play-by-play of the match for anyone.
I can imagine that live being like, a bit of crack and a bit of a laugh and blah, blah, blah. But I have to tell you, at 38 years old, sitting on my couch watching it, I was mortified in case someone would walk in and I'd have to flick the thing over to Pornhub or something to be less embarrassed.
It's very much like when you see old clips of Raw 2002 or 2002 with
and your
the lesbians.
Mother walks in.
Yeah, HLA.
Oh my god!
And it's just that's when, as you said, your mother would walk in. You're like, it's just wrestling.
This is also obviously where the beautiful people developed their bending over to step through the ropes.
Yes,
routine.
they were figuring out their entrance.
And I am telling you, they got when some wrestlers just punch you, they call it stiff. But when some wrestlers are really good and just get really close, they call it snug. They were snug with them ropes. They should have had someone come out and wipe down them ropes because they were a slipping hazard after.
Here's the thing: you can see why the beautiful people got over.
Oh yeah,
that got over. That was huge. It got over massively.
If I was a 14-year-old boy and that was on my TV, that'd be my number one tag team in the world. Like, be throwing out me Heart Foundation stuff. Going, no.
Well, there you go. You kind of hit the nail on the head. Why they would become so big. So there you go. It worked. The next match, Eric Young and James Storm. Now here's what's weird.
Hold on, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but there's a very short kind of promo before this match with Kurt Angle. So
okay, go on.
The story during the night is that Kurt Angle is trying to set up a kind of a super team.
Yes.
With his crew and with Christian Cage's crew.
Yes, the Angle Alliance.
The Angle Alliance, and he's about to walk into Christian Cage's dressing room or locker room, and the one of the TNA like backstage roving reporters catches him and says, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he goes, "Oh, I'm just going in here."
Hold on a second. That's Jeremy Borash.
Jeremy Vore, sorry. Meant no disrespect.
That's JB. That's the voice of not only WWA but also TNA. So
how can I forget the voice of WWA?
Sorry, I travesty, Martin. Go on.
Well, so he catches Angle and he asks him what he's doing, and Angle's like, I'm not gonna. I'm going in to talk to him. I'm not going in there to fight him. And JV says to him, "All right, well, look, you're kind of hyped up. Like, if you go in there like this, he's going to think you're looking to fight him. Like, calm down, do some deep breathing. Like, me and Karen, Angle's wife at the time, we like do yoga and we practice like deep breathing, and it really helps us like be centered and be present where we are, and we do like." In there, it really helps. And he's explaining all this to him, and Angle is just stone cold silent, and he's getting angrier and angrier and angrier. And when your man finishes his explanation, he says to him, "You've been deep breathing with my wife." And it's one of the funniest. Like, the delivery is just hilarious.
But no, here's the thing: TNA had the best backstage segments like that, where JB would be, he'd be the straight man all the time for it, and it just worked really, really well. So, yeah, that's some TNA magic right there, to be honest with you.
And you know what? It's down to Angle as well. He is one of the few wrestlers, maybe ever, who can simultaneously pull off genuinely terrifying shooter.
Yeah.
And unbelievably dorky goof, at the same time.
I'll say this to you now, though, right? There's a couple of people on the TNA roster that, when they're there, you see them like, oh, they were in TNA, and if you didn't watch it, you didn't really get it. But had the runs of their careers there, right? Raven, Booker T,
yep,
Christian Cage, and Samoa Joe, AJ to an extent, and Kurt Angle had the runs of their careers there. So, and it's because of stuff like that where they could, and even Team 3D to an extent, but they, they're known for being WWE guys or AEW guys or whatever, or ECW guys. It's like, no, they were completely different. And with Angle, there's not only, as you said, like, he's a wrestling machine, an absolute incredible shooter, but then he's doing this real dorky, goofy gimmick as well at the same time. And that is completely TNA owned. That's happened right there. And Christian Cage, again, also very much the same way. And this is one of my favorite feuds that really wasn't a feud, but it was just kind of always simmering. Christian Cage and Angle, phenomenal.
Oh man, there's a lot of rubbish on this that we'll get through, but if you could have like a TNA, I don't know, multi-DVD box set of just Kurt Angle in TNA or Christian Cage in TNA, that would be amazing. And that's me only speaking from...
They exist, I have them inside.
Oh, well, there you go.
Yeah.
That's me only speaking from the little I know,
Yeah.
But Kurt, honest to God, anyone who's out there who's like me, who hasn't seen a lot of TNA, but you are a wrestling fan and sometimes you'd be looking for stuff to watch, anything involving Kurt Angle or Christian Cage, Samoa Joe, or AJ Styles in TNA is genuinely incredible.
Absolutely. Unfortunately, with this match,
What
I can't say the same. Like, Eric Young is weird because he became what he became. He wasn't. So when I watch Eric Young now in current times, even when he was in WWE, it's so weird to see Eric Young like that, because this is how I remember Eric Young, Showtime Eric Young. And he's in there with James Storm, who was obviously fantastic. James Storm is incredible. He always has been. But this match, neither one of them were fully there yet. It's more of a gimmick than it is anything else. It's a comedy match. It's filler. this is your bathroom break, and it sucks.
Yeah.
Eric Young would get the win, and you get the win in a really kind of screwy finish-y way, you know, with a roll up basically.
It was one of those finishes that didn't do anything for either of them.
No, and unfortunately, it's the second time in the night that we've had that where the finish didn't benefit anybody. Everyone was left disappointed.
Like, it's one thing if someone looks weak, but it makes someone else look strong.
Yeah.
Like, we've had 2 finishes so far that didn't serve anybody.
No.
I mean, I wouldn't say this is a comedy match in the same way that, for example, the ODB, which stands for One Dirty Biddy, is a comedy match. I thought this was like a technically proficient, perfectly fine match. James Storm, as you said, is excellent.
Yes.
Like, the moves he's pulling off here are great. Eric Young is fantastic as this kind of constantly fighting his way up babyface character. But this just struck me as a kind of a very bland TV match. Didn't seem like a pay-per-view match. And the other thing is that, so there's a wee video package before it outlining what they're fighting about, and they're fighting about beer, like, because James Storm is the beer drinker, and this match, like, the winner of this match gets the beer. And I'm like, lads, beer is everywhere. Just go and buy.
It's like
go and buy some beer.
You're literally in a theme park.
Yeah, just step outside.
You just step outside. You know?
Everyone in the audience is drinking. People love, like, giving their beer to wrestlers. Look at Hangman. Like, just stick your hand into the audience. I bet you'll come back with beer. You don't need to be fighting each other, and certainly not for, what did this go, like 14 minutes, something like that?
Yeah, it was 13 minutes of nothing. But after it though, it's one of my favorite parts of the show, right? It's like it's a video package and like kind of running through the matches, and then there's a backstage segment, but there's nothing really in that. It does, however, show that they're still hyping up Scott Hall is going to be here, because it's a clip of Kurt Angle, Tom
really
Cole.
believed in him, didn't they?
They really did, and it's like Scott Hall, and he looks really rough. He looks really rough in that picture, and they're like, "Yep, he's going to be here tonight," and you're like, "Oh, lads, come on!" Like, it's very getting late in the day here. So even if he shows up, he's going to have to quickly get changed before he goes out there. One of my favorite parts of the whole show.
Oh yeah, it's like you say, the sad thing is that even in the video packages and even in the promos and pictures and everything like that, Scott Hall does not look great in them.
No.
Like, even if he did show up, what was he going to do?
Look, probably better that he didn't show up, because it would just...
Genuinely, probably.
So we have, although I don't want to be on a downer for this, because we do have the first appearance ever of the Feast or Fire concept. So do you know what this is?
Yeah, I know what it is. But again, a bit like the tables match, as a concept, it makes no sense. Why? Well,
it kind of does make sense, right? It's basically like the Money in the Bank ladder match, but you don't know what briefcase you're going to win. So what happens is, and I actually looked at this a couple of times to see if they'd put up the rules, because that's what TNA used to do. So basically what happens is you go up and get the briefcase as if you would normally in a normal ladder match. There's 4 of them, and they're on different points. Yeah,
it's not a ladder. It's an on a pole match.
Yes, it's on a pole match, but there's 4 different poles. You can go up and get one, right? But you don't know what you've won, right? So you could either feast or fire or get fired. So you could feast on, winning title shot, the X Division title, or shot.
Three of the briefcases have title shots in them,
and one of them gets fired.
One of them has a P45 or whatever the Yankee version that
pink
is.
Slip.
A pink slip. That's
pink slip. Yeah.
But
here's the thing.
This is why the concept doesn't make any sense to me.
Okay.
So there's 25% chance. Not to get all Scott Steiner about it.
I was just about to say, they all come out to Scott Steiner's music, and he's in this match, so it's like, okay. He wins this match, actually.
You're going to get fired.
Yeah.
So why would you even...
Well, that's the risk, isn't it?
But why take that? Like, that's... So there's... Okay, so, right. This summed it up for me. One of the guys who gets... we can't even go through all the names. There's like a dozen guys in this match.
Yes.
One of them
people in this match
is Billy Gunn or Kip Giblets or whatever his name is in
Kip James.
Kip James in TNA, right? He gets the briefcase down, but it's not enough to get the briefcase down. You have to get out of the ring and both feet have to touch the floor while you're holding the briefcase, right? So he's gets the briefcase down, but then he gets surrounded by loads of guys and he doesn't know what to do. So he launches it, fires the briefcase out of the ring, outside into the waiting arms of former almost world champion, came within 3 seconds of defeating The Rock at the height of his popularity.
Just 3 seconds.
Just 3 seconds away from glory is all he was. Jesse James, or what's his name in TNA? He's
BG James.
BG James, right? Into BG James's hands. And he's standing shouting at Kip James, going, "Oh, throw it to me, throw it to me." So he throws it to him, and then he catches it. But then as soon as he catches it, he's like, "Oh no, I don't want it, I don't want it." Because it could be he's fired.
Could be.
But that's what I'm like, the whole concept of this is... I don't know. I never got this match. If I was in this match, I would go, well, 3/4 chance I'll get a shot at a title, but I'm a wrestler. I just keep wrestling, I'll get a shot at a title eventually, and 25% chance I'll get fired. Do you know? I think I'm just going to go out and take a back bump and roll to the corner and let someone else win it. Yeah, get paid. Go get paid and go outside and buy some beer, because apparently James Storm thinks it can only be procured from Eric Young's defeats.
See, I think the way they built it up is more like the guys who had nothing to lose would risk it all, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it kind of makes sense if it was then a match with 12, like the 12 lowliest jobbers in the company, but you got Scott Steiner in there, and I tell you who I did like, but who needs a name change. Petey Williams. He is ripped. He looks great. His moveset is amazing. He does this incredible, like kind of like a hop out of the ring onto a guy's shoulders on the floor into a Hurricane Rana. Like, he looks great in this match, but Petey Williams, like, he sounds like a weedy jobber. Like he needs to do something about that. So you've jumped ahead a little bit. That's what Scott Steiner would say to him, and he'd become little Petey Pump. And he would get Scott Steiner's gimmick. Little Petey Pump. It sounds like a sex toy for undersized men. That's what his gimmick would be. Scott Steiner, yeah. Jesus Christ. Are we over the threshold yet? Not yet. Not yet. God damn it. Not yet. We're nearly there. Damn you, Phoenix FM. There's so much I need to say about this, and I can only say it with a certain type of language. Well, hold on a second. We can go to break now, and then we can come back, and we'll do just that. So, folks, if you want to get the rest of this show, which is obviously going to be very colourful, please go over to nerdtoknowmedia.com. You can find us on the True Penny channel as well, and of course on Spotify, YouTube, all that kind of good stuff as well. We are here every single Tuesday on Phoenix 92.5 FM, but the podcast is up where all podcasts are available and on YouTube. If this is your first time checking us out, please do subscribe. Let us know what you thought of the podcast. Your comments below. Are you a fan of Little Petey Pump? Let us know. And we'd love to hear from you guys as well. So we'll see you at the rest of the podcast over on nerdtoknowmedia.com. See you next week, guys.
You're listening to the Nerd to Know Media Network.
Join us at nerdtoknowmedia.com.
Alright, so you're wondering, how do I listen to you guys live? How do I check it out? Well, good news, we stream every Wednesday, Twitch. That's how you're going to be able to catch us. Hope to see you in the live chat.
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.
Alright folks, and we're back here on nerdtoknowmedia.com, the wrestlingrewind.com, Spotify, YouTube, all that kind of good stuff. Martin, little PD pump. Let it rip.
Here's what I want to know. How on earth could you even need a little PT pump to help you when Lance Tramp Stamp Hoyt is in the ring there? Like, surely you'd get one look at that tramp stamp and you wouldn't even need little PT pump anymore.
You'd be ravenous, wouldn't you?
Nature would just take over.
That's one thing. Once I saw he was on this, I was like, oh, the tramp stamp is back. And it's so distracting. All you can see is just the whole thing.
12,
okay. Which was
12 guys in that ring. They're battering each other. They're climbing up to catch briefcases that make no sense because there's a 25% chance you'd be fired. And still, like, there could be cartwheeling clowns on fire in the middle of that arena, and all you can see is tramp stamp, tramp stamp.
which is more distracting? Lance Hoyt's tramp stamp or Kip James ring gear?
Oh my god, yeah.
They're both real bad.
But you know what? At least Kip James ring gear is in keeping with the
character. That makes sense.
Yeah.
That's true. That's very true.
Lance Hoyt's tramp stamp is just I'm like this huge guy. I'm like really strong. I have these like real kind of old school hard hitting violent matches, but also on my lower back I am an 18-year-old sorority girl. All right, Lance.
I think that's why they paired him up with the really hot girl who came out, because they're like, surely she's okay with it. You should be too.
and then they talk to him backstage in real life. Also, devout Christian. I was like, Lance, I have no idea what you're about.
You're giving me all mixed signals here, buddy.
Mishmash of different ideas and ideologies, and
yeah, maybe he was drunk. That could be it.
Maybe, yeah. Now, to be fair to him, he does in later years get it covered up, and he is now like one of my genuine favorite wrestlers. Lance Archer in AEW, he's class. He's in a tag team nowadays with Brian Cage. It's just these two huge guys who murder people. Brilliant. But the little part of me, every time I look at the tattoo on his back now is of like a graveyard. Yeah. But it's obviously like it's a cover-up job. And as much as I love him, I'd be sitting watching his matches and I'd be looking at the graveyard and I'd be going, I know what's buried underneath that graveyard.
So I have a sign I'm going to take with me to the next AEW show. I have my next sign I'm going to take with me to my next AEW show. Or if anyone's listening, please, you have my full permission to take the sign. Lance, I missed the tramp stamp.
Bring it back.
I bring back the tramp stamp. Yeah, I want to see that on AEW TV, folks. So if anyone can make that happen, I'd appreciate it.
You know what you need is a picture of Lance Hoyt's lower back on that sign.
Yes, I love it. Yes,
you know, or make like a meme of it, like one of those how it started, how it's going. You know?
But look, that aside, the match itself, even though it makes no sense, which I would argue that it does to an extent. I mean, a lot of the guys in there at the time would be lower mid card, like really, really lower middle card.
You've got Shark Boy and you've got
Eli Skipper and Jimmy Rave, you know, guys who are never getting a look in, you know, in there and you know, but they were like workhorses. Like Sanjay Dutt's in there, and he was there for years. Would always be constantly in the mix. I think he works now I think he's in AEW now. He is in AEW now.
Yeah, he's
as a manager.
A manager in AEW now, which kind of surprised we haven't seen him tussle it up, because from what I've seen of him in TNA, he's actually very good.
But a lot of the guys in the ring here who would be in the lower mid card, they are agents for AEW. But the thing about it is, it's like they never would get. They'd never be in the main mix of things really at this point in TNA. So it makes sense they would go for it. The ones that. The bit that I kind of liked, because it's shown really what this match was for, is when BG got the case and he's like, "Oh my God, I don't want this," because him and Kip, they knew that they weren't in the mix. They were lucky to be there, right? They were lucky to have a job, and that kind of, I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah. Look, like I said, there's with these TNA shows, there's a lot of context I'm missing because I don't have the TNA knowledge that. But like, okay,
I'll put it this way, right? You're Shark Boy, right? And this is before you break out and do the Stone Cold Steve Austin thing.
Yeah.
If someone's like, Martin, you have a 1 in 4 chance of getting a title shot. Or sorry, 3 in 4. 3 in 4 shot of getting a title shot. 1 in 4 getting a world title shot. You're probably going to take it, because you're like, well, it's either this or I'm going to be curtain jerking for the next couple of years. And if you get fired, you can go to Mexico and find your way back eventually, Yeah.
And I mean, it kind of does even make sense from the perspective of the higher up guys, because if Scott Steiner gets the briefcase that says he's fired, he'd probably just refuse to be fired.
Yeah.
He'd just say no.
He can do what he wants. He's like, no.
Who's going to tell him?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, that's the thing. It's TNA logic, but it's the most sensical TNA logic of the show. So I'm okay with it. Like, I heard somebody run down the King of the Mountain match during the week, and I was like, oh, here, what are you doing? Fair enough. Pull the belt down, but the rest of it, we're okay with. The next match, however, is probably the match of the night. And I say that with no joking. It's genuinely the match that stands up. It's Gail Kim defeating Awesome Kong. Fair enough. It's by disqualification. But this match, it's like the middle of a saga. So I'm not really gonna go too hard on it, because like it wouldn't pay off now for a little while. But Gail Kim, absolute, like, I would say invented modern women's wrestling, along with Awesome Kong. Obviously, Awesome Kong's a much easier sell, because she's a lot bigger. She's able to, be a lot more domineering than Gail Kim. Gail Kim has to work a bit harder because she's, an average frame for a woman. But at the same time, when you watch her do what she's doing, it looks very standard by today's wrestling, right? But that's because they were all inspired by it. And, I was listening to an interview with Becky Lynch, and she was saying that she actually wanted to go to TNA because this is the place where the women were having these kind of matches.
Some of them.
Well, some of them. But cast your mind back to 2006, 2007, when we were looking at Cyber Sunday and Taboo Tuesday and what the women were doing there.
Yeah, like in TNA, some of them are having these embarrassing diva nonsense matches. In WWE, all of them are having these embarrassing diva nonsense matches.
Or they're having fulfill your fantasy matches.
Oh my God. Yeah, not even matches.
No, just leering.
No, I completely understand that. There's like, so this is, look, I understand that Kim and Kong they should have been a tag team called Kim Kong. Anyway,
missed opportunity. But again, what they go through, I don't think there's ever a tag team coming there.
No, there's a lot of this is unforgivable.
Yeah.
I understand that they would go on to have much better matches. That this is kind of like setting up the feud, so that's why the match itself is kind of it's a prolonged squash.
Yes.
Awesome Kong is murdering Gail Kim, but the whole point is Gail Kim never gives up. Like, She will not quit. She will not stay down. Awesome Kong is absolutely murking her at every turn.
Yes.
And she keeps getting back up. So
it's a great clinic on babyface.
Well,
and peril
this is
spots.
Yeah, exactly. So if you were to remove all context and just rate it as a match, it's probably still the best match of the night.
Yeah.
But it's like if you were just to view it as a match, it's 3 stars. But knowing why the match is like that and the background of the Gail Kim Awesome Kong story, this is the only match in the whole show that made me want to see more.
But also,
I want to see what happens next with these two.
When your cover art for a pay-per-view is Black Rain and Judas Macias.
Like, why should we even try tonight? Like,
yeah, I knew what I was getting. I knew what I was getting here. I was just like, this is gonna be real bad. But yeah, you're 100% right.
You're the TNA guy as well. Like, what happened with Gail Kim? Why isn't she like super well known, like a Trish Stratus or Tori?
She is. I ran into her like last year in Glasgow. She's still there. She's still doing stuff with TNA. But basically, what happened was the reason why Gail Kim wasn't known was because she is a huge name inside TNA.
Yeah.
When she went to WWE, however, it was under the old regime, and she wasn't given a chance.
They WWE'd her.
Well, it was a very different time. Obviously, that didn't work out. She would go back to TNA, and now she's back in TNA doing bits. But it's just unfortunate. That's all. She is a legend inside TNA, but it didn't cross over. Now,
it genuinely is because she is like excellent.
And what would happen is about 3 years later, the whole Hulk Hogan thing would happen, and that derailed the women's division completely. So it was bad timing all across the board. But here's the thing: Gail Kim's career isn't over yet. Obviously, she's not really wrestling anymore, but she's semi-retired. That doesn't mean that she can't show up on NXT. That doesn't mean that she can't show up in AEW eventually, which I wouldn't bet money on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if either one of those things happened.
Man, I'd love to see it. Cause like if ever, like I know you're saying she's well known within TNA, but that's
she's a legend in TNA.
A niche of a niche. Like
absolutely, yeah.
If ever anyone deserved their flowers, deserved a massive platform to just say, look, this person's incredible. And like you said, maybe with the relationship with WWE that TNA has now, maybe something happened, but my God, she deserves better than NXT,
Yeah, but as I said, it's a lot of the stuff wasn't possible until recently. It was kind of like when TNA went through its bad period, that was it. There wasn't an AEW. WWE was kind of a lock shop, the way. And again, like when I ran into everybody there in Glasgow, they were just going from Impact. They still weren't officially TNA yet. So the whole landscape has changed. They weren't doing the WWE shows, So I could probably see that happening in the near future because she's not retired. She's still around, and she wasn't in the ring, but she was backstage, and she was, everybody loved her. So she still has a lot of capital. I would just say maybe keep an eye out with Gail Kim because I don't think we shouldn't last for her. And with Awesome Kong, you might not notice, she showed up on WWE as Karma, had one of the biggest holy you-know-what moments, and then unfortunately she got pregnant at the wrong time, the baby miscarried, and that was it.
Similar with her AEW debut, she showed up and she was a kind of a big deal on AEW, but I think at that stage she was her body was just done. Like Awesome Kong, so for anyone who doesn't know, obviously there's her WWE stuff, there's her TNA stuff, but she did an awful lot of stuff in Japan as well.
Yeah, she did, yeah. That's where she went after. Yeah.
I would encourage anyone, look up women's wrestling in Japan. It is no messing.
No.
It is absolutely a combat sport, a tremendous toll on the body. And I think by the time she'd gotten to AEW, she was also filming what was that Netflix show about the women's wrestling? Glow. She was also filming Glow, but I think her body was just done. She was just beat up, and it's a pity because she's another amazing wrestler who really deserved her flowers on, like a massive international platform.
And if you're listening to this on the True Penny channel, there's no better man than James True Penny himself to actually go through that, because anytime I do a show with James, and it's been a while, James, so we'll have to do a show soon, is his knowledge of Yoshi wrestling is unbelievable. So
no better man. He had me on to do I can't remember the name of the show now, but it was an All Japan women's show from the 90s, and I swear to God, like, talk about being engaged. I was in my house in Ireland, 15,000 miles from Japan, watching a show that happened 30 years ago, and I was standing on my couch screaming for Aja Kong to take on the rest of the world. Like,
oh yeah, he just has the best knowledge of it. So, if you guys aren't familiar with it and you want an entry point, Martin's been on the show, I've been on the show, but just listen to his content. It's phenomenal. And if you listen to us on the True Penny Network, then you know that. But if you haven't, go over and check that out. It's always phenomenal. But you know what else was phenomenal, Martin?
I assume you're about to talk about the highlight of the entire show.
Yes.
The reason to watch this pay-per-view. And it's on YouTube, so
for free. Yeah. TNA Wrestling put up all these pay-per-views for free. It's fantastic.
Throwing away money. I'd have paid to watch this next segment.
Oh my God, I loved it so much. So let's set the scene, right? In this match, we have Abyss, which Abyss was his wheelhouse. Raven, he was a substitution for Rhino, which we'll get to in a second. We had Black Rain, who you may know as Goldust, or Dustin Rhodes.
The natural
Dustin Rhodes. Or what's it? Seven as well. In
I bet he would prefer we not refer to him as the creepy pedophile.
So Black Rain was when Dustin Rhodes was going through a real bad period of his life, like real bad.
I'm a huge Dustin Rhodes fan. One of my favorite wrestling t-shirts I have is his the Natural Keep Stepping t-shirt that I have. Like, that is my gym t-shirt. I absolutely like it. Legitimately, like, when I'm wearing it and I think I'm done, like, I look down at it and it gives me an extra boost. It is heartbreaking seeing him as Black Rain.
So it's, and even at the time, I'll be honest with you, at the time, nobody was having a good time with this. It was really, really upsetting to see this whole thing. So for anyone that doesn't know, he wore like a black version of the Goldust attire. He was a lot heavier than he was. No shade on that as well. It's just, he was wearing a black wig and he'd carry like a rat around with him, right? But that wasn't the weirdest part. The weirdest part, he had like a cane with a cane knife. And he tried to stab people with it.
No, it was worse, and it makes sense if he stabbed people, but he had a cane with a knife and he'd always hit them with the handle end of it.
Yeah, he never hit them with the
knife on it.
So
just hit them with the cane if you're just going to use the blunt object.
And this would develop. This would develop into a whole litany of characters. One of which being Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards, which is the darkest part of his psyche.
You've explained this to me 100 times, right? And I'm sorry. For the benefit of the listeners, you're going to need to do it again. So I was watching Dustin Rhodes on my television, and a separate physical person who's a different size and shape from Dustin Rhodes is there,
Yes.
called Rellik. The name Rellik, by the way,
Which is killer spelled backwards.
anyone didn't know, comes from, if you actually take the word Rellik and put it in a mirror, it spells out the word killer.
Well, if you misspell Rellik.
If you misspell. Oh, yeah. If you spell Rellik and put it in a mirror, you get what? Siler? But anyway, so this person is stood beside him, but that is not a separate person. That is a physical manifestation of the darkest part of Dustin Rhodes' mind.
Correct.
That is that is what it is meant to be.
Yes.
And Black Rain is not the darkest part.
No, but see, here's the thing. I think he has to be Black Rain in order to summon Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards. You can't have one without the other. And then he has a rat, and I think he likes to lick the rat as well, which is
he licks the rat.
It's very weird.
Multiple times.
It's a very
promo.
It's a very strange period for Dustin Rhodes.
Frankly, it's not even a promo. It's Dustin Rhodes occasionally stopping licking his rat to speak into a microphone.
And the promo doesn't say anything.
It's
random
one of those.
nonsense.
Yeah, but worse than random, because random nonsense is fine if it's delivered with any kind of flow. But it's one of those promos where you can tell he doesn't even know what he's saying. He doesn't know what he's going to say next. So you get those big pauses where he's like, "And Raven, let me tell you something, Raven, and I'm going to tell you now." Lick the rat, lick the rat, lick the rat. "I'm going to tell you now, Raven, that when I get into that ring, we, lick the rat, are going to, I'm going to really, I'm going to beat you up, Raven, lick the rat, lick the rat." It's, oh my God. As a huge Dustin Rhodes fan, it's partly the best thing on the show, but also partly heartbreaking.
And then sorry, I had to mute myself. I was laughing so much. So the rat's name is Misty.
And it's not a rat; it's an Arctic fox.
It's
Folks,
a rat.
we are not on acid. Like the interviewer is there talking about the rat that he won't stop licking, and he says, "No, it's not. This is an Arctic fox." And I'm going, lads.
What are you doing?
Lads, it's not.
It's clearly a rat.
It's not like, and you could understand if he'd at least taken the rat and sprayed it white or something, but it's not. It's just a run-of-the-mill commoner garden rat.
But he takes it to the ring in a little cage, and he has his cane. Now I have to say, there is a really cool shot when he's walking out, and it's showing the Tacks. But it's also single-handedly the most WCW shot of the whole night, where it just looks like something from Thunder.
What do you call Eric Rowan's spider? I'm here, Darragh. I'm awful sorry to derail things with the personal story, but the other thing about this promo, and we have spent more time on this than any single match. But the other thing about this that absolutely just delighted me was I have this friend called Darren, and he's real fucking Belfast, like he's proper Belfast. And we were in university once, and there was another guy we lived with. He's a real oddball. Real strange guy. You know, when you go to university, you just get put in houses with people and you don't know who they are. But anyway, towards the end of the year, this guy finally got a girl back to the house. Like the whole year, he like, he's a very strange guy. He wasn't let into a club once because they assumed he was on drugs. The guy didn't even drink. He's just a weirdo. Like, you just look at him, you go, that lad's high his eye is a cape.
Yeah.
It's like he wouldn't be just be what he looked like. But anyway, towards the end of the year, he finally got a girl back to the house, and this was like the biggest news. You're like, oh my god, your man's got a girl back! I can't believe that. And Darren, in the thickest Belfast accent you've ever heard, ran past his room and shouted in the door, "Liquor rat!" and ran off. And Dustin Rhodes is licking this rat, and that's all I can. All I can think of. My friend Darren, in the harshest Belfast accent you ever heard, going, "Liquor rat!" Sorry about that.
You're okay. So, I also really, hold on, wait a minute. I also really enjoyed the fact that when Rellik comes out, he's wearing a mask.
Oh, Jesus.
Over his mask. Why is he wearing two masks? It's so stupid.
I also love that in the deepest, darkest recesses of Dustin Rhodes' mind, like the worst version of myself, he's like a really cut, really fit, ripped guy. Dustin, is this the deepest, darkest recesses of your mind, or is this like where you keep the last lingering remnants of hope? Like, you know, I struggle with weight, and I know in the deepest, darkest recesses of my mind, I am not an incredibly ripped, athletic cut guy. I'm an amorphous blob that doesn't even have bones or shape. You know, I don't know if you've ever read the short story, I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream.
I have read it, yeah.
Yeah, that's in the deepest, darkest recesses of my mind. I'm not fucking Action Man.
It's funny though, because like they're the worst ill-fitting tag team ever, because there's no real logic behind it. Like Raven and Abyss don't make sense, but Abyss and Rhino make sense, so you know you can kind of get that. With Rellik and Black Rain, you're like, okay, I know the story, but as you said, I still can't make it fit. It's not like they're dressed the same, or you know, Rellik is wearing the same kind of gear. No, he's just this really, really cook guy next to Black Rain.
Yeah, I think the just same with Abyss and Raven. I think they just took everyone and said, "You're vaguely spooky. Like we'll put you together."
Well, look, I mean, this Thumbtacks match, this is Raven's kind of shtick. You know, he do a few matches like this. He do the House of Fun match and blah blah blah. Abyss would do the Monsters Ball match, blah blah blah. You know, it fit with those two lads. This wasn't like Black Rain fell into this weird void, and I don't really know why, because he wasn't really known for doing real hardcore wrestling anywhere else.
My assumption is that at this stage he's not fit to do anything else.
Right.
Like he couldn't go out there and have a 10-minute competitive match with somebody. I know, but I mean, like,
here's the thing with Abyss.
But he could go out there and he could get dropped on thumbtacks and he could bleed.
Yeah, but that's like, I will have to say with this kind of hardcore wrestling, it was unique to TNA. You know, this is where it would diverge from being a WCW ripoff, because they would use glass, they'd use thumbtacks, and it was cool to see. It was very unique. But it's also where a lot of the injuries, a lot of the bad stuff would happen. I mean, Daphne is the most infamous version of that, like her really, really devastating story. But having Black Rain out there, it feels irresponsible. You know, like he's not in a good way. He's not in a good way.
No, he's not. And do you know what? As well, it's not even the best version of Raven. Like
no, Raven also looks real rough at this. Yeah.
Looking rough, and Abyss was never like, you know, particularly athletic guy.
No, but this was Abyss. Abyss just looked always like Abyss, you know, and credit to him. He'd always go in and take, but you can see it's early on in his career because he doesn't have as many scars.
His arms aren't torn up.
like if you look at his tattoo, not the kind of tribally one. As you're looking more and more Abyss matches, there's just more and more scars through it. So it's just like this was his wheelhouse, you know. So you kind of expect it, but my God,
it's funny you mentioned WCW because I actually got the same feeling watching this that I got watching the old like the WCW hardcore matches we used to watch.
Really,
not because of the bumps or whatever. Like they're completely different. But this match was given far too much time. So there was so much punch, walk, punch, walk to the next. Like if you could take this match and make it a sub 10-minute like carnage, you know, with all the big, because there's some awesome big spots in this. Dustin Rhodes takes a body slam off the middle rope outside the ring onto a big bed of Tacks. Like there's several really cool spots in this.
That was a cool spot, yeah.
Yeah, but it's just that every really cool spot is spaced out with like 3 minutes of punch, walk, rest, hold. Stay down there while I'm choking you until the other guys do their thing, and then the camera comes back to us.
But even with that spot, that was set up at the beginning in a match. You know, It's like they said it like, and Abyss is the one that's doing it. Abyss sets up the table, puts the thumbtacks on it, and how they get there is Raven's in the corner, and Black Rain wants to stab him with the knife stick. You know, and you're like, what is this? Absolute trash. And the thing of it is, it's like you can see that where he is with the knife stick, he's obviously going into it. You know,
he doesn't want to stab him. He wants to bludgeon him. He wants to bludgeon him with the knife.
It's really sad. Like, you know, at one point it's the best part of the show and the reason to watch it, but you can also tell why they never really, you know, did this again. It wasn't a yearly tradition.
There's another thing in it that it's not their fault. It's a production issue. But the very end of the match is Abyss gets Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards, up for that cool kind of version of the Boss Man Slam he does.
Yeah, the Black Hole Slam.
What is it called? The Black
Hole Slam.
Black Hole Slam, right?
Yeah.
So he gets him up for the Black Hole Slam and he drives Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards, into the thumbtacks, right?
Yes.
And we immediately get, as soon as he lands in the thumbtacks, he screams, he sits up, you know, does that thing so you can see all the thumbtacks in his back. He's screaming, and we get 6 camera cuts from TNA, and every single one of them is of his front. Not one shot of his back with all the thumbtacks in it. Just
completely
different angles of him screaming. It's like, Jesus. You might as well have dropped the poor fella on, you know, toilet roll and saved his back. Like,
there is one near the very end.
They do show replays and that, but in the as soon as it happens, the guy gets black hole slammed on a big pile of Tacks, and then he sits up screaming, and all he's getting is like 6 different angles of him screaming.
You know, here's one thing that I never understood about these matches, right? You're going into a match where, and WWE do it too, so it's not just a thing, it's a wrestling thing. You're going into a match with glass, thumbtacks, fire, barbed wire, whatever. We're gonna go out and you know, take my shirt off.
Yeah.
What are you doing?
You're thick as Gansey, wouldn't you?
You know, at least, you know, Abyss is dressed appropriately. Black Rain is dressed appropriately. He's the only one that was smart to an extent. You know, all the rest
clothes actually look like they're made out of that, probably because of the design on them, but they look like they're made out of that like really hard plastic. So the thumbtacks probably wouldn't even go through them.
Wouldn't even go through it. It's just like I never understood it.
That's why when he went through the table of thumbtacks, the camera didn't show 6 shots of his face.
But to be fair, it looks like he's having a bit of a sleep when they do go back to him.
Yeah, It would. And at the time, it would take 6 shots to get his whole face into it. So
Yeah, no, poor Black Rain. Like
I only make those jokes because look at him now.
I have to say, you know what the mankiest part of this match is? Where he bites him in the head and he's bleeding.
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh, don't do that.
You're looking going, he definitely has something. I don't know what it is.
Just don't do that.
There's something in there.
Don't do that.
There's something. That's just dipping your hand into a big bucket of used needles. Like
it's like that bit from Saw 2.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Like, no thanks.
I meant to say it was the second worst part, because the worst part is when he keeps licking the rat. Just licking the rat. Licking the rat. I don't know what you think is at the middle of that rat, Dustin, but I guarantee you it's just more rat. Stop licking the rat.
Here's the question. How long do rats live for, and does he still have it?
It depends how often and how vigorously you lick.
Because, I don't know, they probably live for a while, right? So, you know, I have so many questions about the Black Rain character. I want to interview Dustin Reynolds or Dustin Rhodes. Just ask him. I need to talk to you about Black Rain.
It's probably something he doesn't like talking about. And again, the only reason any of this is funny, and like I say this as someone who idolizes Dustin Rhodes because of what he's been through and because he came out the other side of it a better, stronger person. Look at Dustin Rhodes now. He has never been better. He's fitter, faster. The matches he's having now are better than the matches he was having as Goldust.
Here's the thing, though. I don't understand.
Just for anyone who thinks we're punching down, we're not. Dustin Rhodes is amazing.
I lived through this. I'm allowed.
You have your PTNAST.
Yeah, I had to cover this. I'm allowed. No, here's the thing. I want to know what, and if Tony somehow can get this to Tony Khan, I want Black Rain and Rellik, which is killer spelled backwards, in 2024.
No,
on AEW.
Veto as an AEW fan. Veto. No, absolutely not. I will not even pass the message on. I will destroy your computer before you can send that email.
No, do you not think like that would be a cool like angle where it's like?
No,
Dustin...
I don't.
I think it would
finally be the thing that broke me.
No,
and I get into tennis or something.
As Dave used to say, play with me a bit. Or play with me here.
Dave used to say whenever he got the little PD pump out. Play with me a bit. Jesus, Dave, it's a wrestling podcast.
So here's the way I would book it, right? Dustin Reynolds is in the ring. He's doing his stuff. Lights cut out, and all of a sudden, there's a figure wearing the Black Rain gear, and it's a ruse. And it turns out that's actually Rellik. And then you have a feud, and it's just like, I've been the darkest part of you, Dustin. I'm back here for revenge. Blah blah blah. Perfect. No one has to lick the rat, but there's still money on the table.
Then, so Rellik would have to. In this scenario, Rellik would have to take off his mask to reveal his mask. And then he'd also have to remove what I can only assume would be a huge fat suit.
I don't know. I just want to know where Rellik is now. It's like the way every time I see Tomko, I'm like, where's Tomko?
Have you looked it up? Where is Tomko?
I don't know. I think he's still in jail. But unfortunately, like Rellik has retired. You know, he retired in 2014. So this was at the tail end of his career. But I still
did he remain, like, even after all the TNA stuff, did he remain Rellik or did he become...
No, he went as Johnny Staboli.
Johnny Staboli?
Yeah, Staboli,
so it's like a mafia...
I'm not too sure. I didn't keep up with his career, but I would put money on it.
Keep up with Rellik's career?
No, I would put money on it now. If TK rang him up in the morning and go, listen, buddy, we need a ringer, you know?
Yeah,
he'd come in.
I assume he would. He probably needs the $50.
You know, would you believe that he was a product of the power plant?
I would.
Yeah, he was trained by Paul Orndorff and the Power Plant.
Did you ever see Louis Theroux in the Power Plant?
I have, yeah. I knew that's where you were going. So it turns out, right, that it wasn't his first ever gimmick was Johnny Hugger, and then like Johnny the Bull, and that was a mafia gimmick. So maybe Johnny Stamboli was kind of like, a mafia gimmick as well.
Here, come here, and again, sorry, I know we're well into this, and not to derail us, but very briefly, were you? I know you're a TNA guy. Back in the day, were you a WCW guy at all? Did you watch?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you think of Blitzkrieg?
Blitzkrieg is interesting because it's like it's a tale of two cities, really. And then look, that's a whole other saga. With Blitzkrieg and then the Wall and all that other kind of stuff. Which, believe it or not, actually, so not to go on a whole thing, but in an old incarnation of this show, Corey McChrystal would actually do these WCW runs, and I actually found them all on a hard drive. And we go through the career of Blitzkrieg and the Wall. So if there's an appetite for that, I'm happy enough to put those up on the feed. Well,
that is actually really interesting and awesome. The only reason I ask is because I saw a post today about Blitzkrieg. Now, Blitzkrieg was always one of my favorites in WCW.
Yeah.
I thought he was incredible.
Yeah.
Firstly, I assumed he was Japanese or Mexican. I had no idea. He's just...
No, he was German.
Common or garden white American.
No, he's German. Half German, half American.
Oh, German, is he? Right. Yeah. But
that's the whole thing. He was Alex Wright.
Yeah, I always wondered. I was like, why did this Mexican guy call himself Blitzkrieg? but anyway, whatever his back, I always loved him as a young fella. He was always one of my absolute favorites in WCW. And whenever I think back to WCW, like Blitzkrieg is just a figure who was always there. I had no idea. He had a total of 30 matches for WCW. 50, but 20 of them were dark matches. So he was only there for a year. He had 30 matches for WCW. And then even before, like, the company collapsed and was sold and all that. So I always wondered why he wasn't part of the invasion. He quit wrestling to be a computer technician.
Fair.
What?
Fair.
That is wild. Like, in my mind, when I think back to wrestling, like, Blitzkrieg is a wrestler. He's always been a wrestler. He must have been around forever. Nah, he was there for like 9 months. He had 30 matches and they just noped out of there.
So I have some background information of where the idea for Rellik, which is Killer Spelled Backwards, came from. Would you like to know?
Yeah, you mean there's more to it than
there's more to it.
Killer Spelled Backwards?
There's some deep lore, right? So it turns out that Hugger and Chuck Palumbo were the reformed full-blooded Italians, right? And this was in the independent circuit in Mexico. And then when they were in Arizona in 2006, he created a character called, you want to guess?
Yes.
So it's a similar idea.
Niatli, which is Italian spelled backwards.
It's a horror movie.
Okay.
And it has a similar premise.
To
something spelled backwards.
Oh. A Nightmare on Elm Street. No, it's The Shining, is it?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Red Rum.
And he created a character called Red Rum, which was a reference to the movie The Shining. And apparently the look of Red Rum is based on the Great Muta.
Oh, yeah, I kind of see that.
And he had a dark match apparently in WWE called The Unknown Wrestler, defeated Chavo Guerrero. But then he was, apparently Jeff Jarrett, Vince Russo saw this gimmick and brought him in as Rellik, which is Killer Spell Backwards.
Just a meeting of minds. Like,
there you go.
They didn't know anything about his Red Rum character. They just met him one day and they were like, listen, have you ever thought about doing anything with your name backwards? And he was like, shut up. You're not going to believe this.
Well, I have this in the pocket. So the only match that he won, so after losing several matches, so him and Black Rain only won one match against the Motor City Machine Guns in 2008.
Darragh, that's all. Yeah, like I've only won one match. That's all you need. You know,
That's all you need. So good, I didn't need to do it again.
Yeah, exactly. Once you've established that you're capable of winning a match, anything beyond that is just showing off. You know.
So this has been the Rellik, which is Killer Spell Backwards podcast.
Yeah,
we spent.
It always has been.
We spent longer on this match and lore than we have on any other part of this pay-per-view.
This should have been the podcast.
So we move on from.
Must we?
Must we? I think we've talked longer.
We'll have more pages.
Well, okay, I'll leave the last word to you on this. What else have we missed that you wanted to say? Preferably not about the rat.
That's all I have to say. That's just me here licking me rat.
As Black Rain instructed and told us how to do.
Yeah, just as the prophecy foretold.
I swear though, I really want an interview with Dustin Rhodes, just to be like, listen, we got to talk about Black Rain. I know it's difficult.
Would you want to talk about the lowest point in your life?
I have so many questions.
Hey, Dustin, you're currently like the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champion and the Ring of Honor Trios Champion. You're regularly wrestling in AEW. You've come through major drug addiction. You look better than ever. So I thought we'd get together and I'd interview you about the time you used to be really fat and lick rats.
I have so many questions. It's like I can let sin go by, but
do you think it's like do you think it's the rat like Jake the Snake? His snakes that he all the time it was a different snake, or
see these are questions I have.
Is he licking a load of different rats?
These are questions I have. Because there's only one man that knows the answer to that.
It's one thing. It's a
Baby
weird.
Rellik.
It's a weird guy, but it's like a quirky thing. It's like, oh, he's the guy who licked the rat, but if he has licked multiple rats, that's. So
moving away from the rat licking.
Yeah, sorry. You can see our Spotify Wrapped next year lost 97% of this.
So the next match really is kind of the pinnacle of this pay-per-view. From an all joking aside, really really good match. Yeah. It's a phenomenal and it's weird because it's a tag match and they can either be really good or really bad in TNA. There is no real in between. But again, when we read who's in this, you'll see why. Kaz and Booker T defeated Christian Cage and Bobby Roode. Now, the Christian Cage on this show, this is the best Christian Cage. The look, the presentation, the music, everything. Christian Cage, absolute top of his game here. The champion, Christian Cage, absolutely phenomenal, right? Honestly, and not to go too modern. There is nobody happier in this world than me that people finally see Christian Cage as the way I've seen Christian Cage since 2005. So people are, that makes me really happy. But he's great here. He's there, Bobby Roode, Robert Roode, whatever, phenomenal TNA homegrown talent. Obviously, people know him in WWE later on, but you put these guys together in any permutation, you're going to have a good match. Kaz is still having incredible matches in 2024.
This was my takeaway from this was Christian amazing, the debut of Booker T incredible,
amazing.
Man, this match is all about Kaz. Kaz is he blows everybody else away. Yeah. In ring, he is unbelievable.
He's still unbelievable. That's what's amazing. Kaz, you were talking about missed opportunities with Gail Kim. Kaz is up there too. You know, it
Man,
really is
so
kind of an awful shame that
after SCU split, Frankie Kazarian did this Elite Hunter gimmick, and it was awesome. He was just taking out members of the Elite in AEW, and it looked like he was going to pick them off one by one, and we were going to have a massive like a pay-per-view main event with Kenny Omega, and for whatever reason, it kind of just tapered out, and they didn't.
That's kind of the story of Kaz's career. That like right there, that happened.
That was so hot. Like that Elite Hunter gimmick was so hot.
Yeah, it happens. It's an unfortunate thing, and if you never watched TNA, prepare for that to happen an awful lot. It's really sad. I never understood it either.
Is he
like
just
I still don't.
Unlucky, or is he difficult to deal with backstage, or what's
I've never heard anything bad said about him. I think it is just circumstance. I think it is just circumstance, because like TNA still love him and they still use him. He'd even put him over. They put him over Henry, and then Henry obviously won the Glasgow Cup thing. So he's still up there in the main event in TNA to this day. But I don't know, man. The stars just never seem to align.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just never been the way. Like Kaz has always been the consistent guy in TNA, the consistent guy, even in AEW, just has never. Stars have never aligned, but this match is, you know,
as
belt to
singles
belt.
and as SCU tag with Christopher Daniels.
Yes.
Like, I'm sure they were AEW's first ever tag team champions. Like they were great. Like it's not like they didn't get their moment, but oh man, watching this, like that is a guy who would have taken the ball with a singles run and really made something of it.
It's kind of a tale of two cities. You look at AJ Styles, like him and Kaz are very similar in lots of ways, but AJ was able to just keep going and able to turn those, even admittedly low point, because he wasn't a top star at this point. You know, he was in the main event. It still was the Kurt Angle show, but he still kept himself there through his character work. Kaz never really did that. That's the best answer I could give. Where Kaz was great in ring, but we'll see at other points if we keep going through TNA, you'll see where they tried to change his gimmick or alter it around, and it just never clicked. Where as AJ, he was still AJ, and it still clicked. So it's just a sad what if, you know. But what definitely wasn't a what if is what would happen in the main event. So
wait, just before the main event, there was a period in the middle of this match where spotlight shone into the audience, and they were like, "Oh no, it's Robert Roode's stalker!" And there was just this girl in the audience, kind of like looking behind a wall, like looking real suspicious, and then that was it. They never mentioned it again. Just bizarre. So I assume there's like a whole story there. But yeah, just I wanted to bring that up because I was like, what the hell?
That's totally fair. So what came up next was something that I haven't really seen outside of WCW, right? And look, AEW would do it too, but never like this, where they wouldn't focus on it in the same way, where the real world directly involves the show, and you don't really know if it's part of the show or if it's real, right? So WCW would be infamous for it, for better and for worse. WWE would do it, flirt with it, but never fully do it. AEW did it.
Well, WWE had the pipe bomb,
and
obviously the Montreal screw job. And
yeah, but they were like flirting with it, and it wasn't like this. I never saw, like, this is incompetently doing it.
Oh yeah,
like AEW did it with like the whole Punk thing, that would kind of be close to it, but it didn't derail the show like
no, and I think the reason they did it as well was because of the era. Like it was
it was absolutely
was Twitter. It was like you couldn't not
Yes,
address
absolutely.
it in some way, you know.
There was no that's
One of the many reasons wrestling was so much better in the 80s and 90s.
But this is what I'm saying. There was,
Fans didn't have a way of directly influencing shows.
absolutely. That's what I'm saying though. There was no reason to do this. They had not only did he have a couple of weeks to kind of be like, look, maybe Scott's not doing well. Let's reconsider. They had the entire show. Like, he's not here. Let's address this, or let's just.
So you're the TNA guy. Samoa Joe comes out and delivers, like you say, is it real? Is it not? Looks like a shoot interview.
Even backstage,
promo.
No, but even backstage, he's going mental backstage. And you're like,
so you're the guy. Is it real? Is it?
It's real.
Yeah. So this is.
Yeah, no, this was all real. In fact, it was so real. It was so real that they actually got in trouble after it.
Well, I'm looking.
So what happened was, right? So I'll give you some backstage, right? So after the event, right, Kevin Nash and Joe went like apoplectic. They were very, very upset. There was a heat exchange between the two of them, right? So obviously Nash is sticking up for Scott because that's what he did. They're mates, right? And apparently it nearly cost them their job. So the next night, TNA actually held a meeting and announced that if anyone was happy with the job, they could just leave. And there's only one person that left after that. Do you know who it was?
Who? Nash.
No. Loki. Senshi. He's the only one that he's not even involved. Not even just walked out. Just walked out.
That's amazing. That's like me and Hannah having an argument, and the next thing there being a knock at the door, and it being the neighbour, and her going, "Fuck you, Martin! I'm breaking up with you." It's like, what?
So apparently, like, Caval, Loki, Senshi, took this so badly. He was so offended that his night was ruined.
Senshi, by the way, was one of the 12 people in a feast or famine match that was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 matches ago. I'm surprised he was even in the building. I'm surprised he hadn't showered and changed and left at this stage and discovered, unlike James Storm, that you can just buy beer.
So that is the direct result of this. So Joe apologized because, of course he did. He apologized for what happened. And Nash obviously was like, I'm getting paid, I don't care. But yeah, so she's like, you know what? I don't need this. I'm gonna leave. So if anyone does know, Senshi's is one of the most difficult people to work with, apparently, backstage.
Very opinionated.
I knew where he goes.
On everything. Things that do not involve him. Tremendously passionate opinions on them.
Yeah, he's the opposite of Kaz, where you never hear anything bad about Kaz. But Senshi, you're like, man, what a dickhead. Legitimately. So there you go.
I was talking to my friend. We weren't even at TNA. I was at home between shows, and I was talking to my friend about the Crimean War. And he just popped in, got really pissed off. We had very extreme views on the Crimean War from 1890, and we've just never seen eye to eye since.
So yeah, there you go. So this was real. This happened. This was not a work. But like Vince Russo was writing it. He was there. So
I was watching it, looking at Samoa Joe. So Samoa Joe comes out and he gets a microphone and he is going off in the ring. And Kevin Nash is just stood in the background looking like super pissed, but not wrestling pissed, not like head down, like nuanced. And I'm looking at this going, well, I know you're not that good of an actor. So
do you know what the official the official reason for that Scott Hall didn't show up for, because it was reported on by Adam Martin at WrestleView at the time. Do you
Right.
wanna know?
Is this the reason he gave, or is it the real reason? Because
This was the reason. This is the reason that the torch ran with. So it's the reason he gave.
Okay, so so I assume the real reason is he was nostrils deep in blow and hookers. The reason he gave, stuck in traffic.
Close. Food poisoning.
Food poisoning. You actually can get food poisoning from snorting cocaine at a hooker's arse.
So I have the actual news report here from the 3rd of December, 2007. According to to a report by the Pro Wrestling Torch, the word making the rounds backstage regarding Scott Hall no showing at the Turning Point pay-per-view last night was he had, quote, food poisoning and couldn't make the show. Considering the circumstances involved, there were some strong negative feelings towards him backstage within TNA for not at least attempting to show up when the company invested time building up the 6-man main event.
The food poison was so bad, he couldn't even anybody. Ring or text or, give my close personal friend Kevin Nash a shout and just say, will you tell them I won't be there? I'm very unwell.
I mean, listen, I know you've worked jobs, I've worked jobs, our current jobs. You can slack them. I know that didn't exist in 2007, but you could, like, text messages did. You could ring them. Even you work in anything, you need to go ringing. Oh, I'm ringing in sick today, and go get doctors. No, I don't buy that. I'm with you, Martin. I think that's probably more likely.
It was on a binge, yeah.
Had to be like this, but it's interesting because you can see it on Kevin Nash's face, and that look is also the WCW look. There's very few times you've seen that. TNA would have it a lot, but I also saw it in AEW where I get those flashes, of like, oh, we've been here before. I think it's because of stuff like this, but it's never been done as incompetently as this. This is like a watershed moment for TNA where it's like, okay, you have everything and you're letting it slip because you haven't learned from the mistakes of the past. And booking a main event with Scott Hall after WWE had to kick him out for the exact same reasons.
Isn't it wild?
Mad.
The people who keep getting, and like, look, God bless him, he's gone now, and when he was good, he was amazing. But isn't it wild, the people who get 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 7th, 8th, 12th chances, and the people who get blacklisted for some minor bullshit.
Yeah, but then again, it's who you know. I mean, like, look, Scott Hall in 2007 would not have been on any pay-per-view anywhere if it wasn't for Kevin Nash having such sway in TNA. But the real tragedy about this whole thing is, and it is the kind of the annoying part about it. Joe cuts this big promo. Could have been his pipe bomb moment, right? Could have been like the thing that turned him into a huge star. Didn't. He'd already had his moment with the belts.
What was the follow up to this? Did he at least then?
He teamed with Nash.
He teamed with Nash. Like
he teamed with Nash, and they'd go into a feud then.
Oh no, that should like think of all the stories that are great stories, but also there's a bit of real life to them. Like Samoa Joe went off script, dropped a pipe bomb live on a pay-per-view about your close personal friend, and now the two of you are at each other's throat. Like, that's believable. So, you buy that.
But look, he would win the belt. He'd win the belt again at Lockdown a couple of months later. And to be honest with you, that's the bit where people turned on Joe, because he had one of the worst runs in TNA history with the belt. So the story doesn't have a good ending.
Well, it has kind of a good ending because.
Well, here's the
he had an amazing run as AEW champion.
We would get an answer a couple of months later. Do you want to know the answer to why Hall didn't show up?
I'm on tenterhooks. Of course, I want to know the answer.
So, about a year later, Nash in 30th of October.
But a year later, when he'd finally come out of his binge.
Well, Nash would say it. Hall wouldn't. Nash said that the reason Hall missed the match at Turning Point was that Hall did not believe that Joe was worth the rub. And Nash and Joe would then have a have a match later in at that Turning Point in 2008 where Nash won.
Preposterous.
So it doesn't have a good ending.
Can't believe that. Scott Hall, who could barely walk, didn't think Samoa Joe was worth the rub.
No. Nash said the Hall didn't think that Joe was worth the rub.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Yeah.
Scott. Oh, sorry. Did I say Kevin Nash? Sorry.
You did.
Scott Hall, who could barely walk, didn't think that Samoa Joe was worth the rub.
Yeah.
So instead, he stayed home and gave himself food poisoning.
Allegedly. So there we go. Look, the match itself, Samoa Joe, Kevin Nash, and Eric Young would double job and come in and be the fill-in. Would defeat the Angle Alliance, Kurt Angle, AJ Styles, and Tomko, the future Hall of Famer.
Still, as we speak, still future
Hall of Famer. I'd bring out Tomko. I don't know where he is. Don't know what he's doing. I'm going to look up here. Please don't be dead. Okay, he's not dead.
Oh, no,
he retired, though. That's okay. For a moment, I thought we were going to have a sad moment where I can't make jokes anymore.
As a match, this is only... Look, there's two ways to look at this. They obviously had to, on the fly, restructure the whole thing.
Hold on, one second. So he was a bodyguard for Limp Bizkit, it turns out. And he's in the video for My Generation, which I didn't know.
What?
Yeah.
Who wants to kill Limp Bizkit?
I don't know. But he owns a gym in Florida and a fitness center, and he also owns an investment property. An investment company in Florida. There we go. There's a happy ending.
Oh, Tom.
There's a happy ending. There you go. Well done, Tom.
Imagine going in for a meeting with him for your investment.
Why did you shoot up in a Burger King?
Looming over you with the tribal tattoos covering his body.
But the question I would have, why didn't you go home and shoot up there instead of in the Burger King? The first question I'd have to ask him. I need to know the answer.
How did you get into investing? I had a vision smacked out of my mind in the Burger King toilet. It's like, this heroin lad, bugs game. Give it up. Get into investing.
So there we go. So at least we know that there was one happy ending. Unfortunately, it wasn't for Samoa Joe, but who knew that the real winner of all this, of all the lads in there, was Tomko. So this has been the Tomko podcast. Thank you so much.
Well, look, like we said, so the actual...
Hold on a second. Tomko, officially on the Bookily list.
Oh, actually, yeah. Actually, perfect. He is not only perfect for the Bookily list, but whenever this podcast starts making us money, we can go to him for investment advice.
There you go. See, one hand washes the other.
Amazing. One hand shoots up the other.
In a Burger King bathroom.
Right, so this match, it only gets 9 minutes. Completely understandable, given they had to, firstly, given they had to change the whole thing, given they had to bring in somebody who not only wasn't supposed to be there, but had already had a match, and also given the fact that Kevin Nash, even more than usual, just could not give a shit, did not want to be there. He just
didn't care at all.
Even by Kevin Nash standards, he is just... He normally does a half arse. This is a quarter arse job. Like, he just... I will say his jackknife still looks amazing.
I was just about to say the jackknife was nearly worth it.
He is, talk about someone resting on their laurels. Like, he is the darkness, and the jackknife is, I believe in a thing called love. That is it. That is it, all he has, but it's so good that people love it.
No, that's fair. Like, it's literally like, it's 98% terrible. Jackknife comes out, you're like, it wasn't that great. Just wipes the rest of it away.
It looked so good. And the other thing is that the match, like say, so yeah, on the one hand, kind of deserves praise because it's only 9 minutes, but obviously loads of it had to be made up on the fly, and they had to account for the other 98% of Kevin Nash's non-performance. But
Muscle Buster ending though was pretty cool on top.
Muscle Buster was pretty cool. But the other thing holding it back is that because it's only 9 minutes, this is a 6-man tag team match, so nobody ever actually gets any time.
No, they all get their stuff in, and that's it.
Yeah, tag in, do their thing, tag out, someone else does their thing, the other team tags out, tag in, like it's a very, I mean, a multi-man match as a main event is already not ideal, you know.
No world title match, no X Division title match,
no world title,
no tag team title
match.
match.
The tag titles on
they weren't.
No tag titles.
Kurt Angle's the champion, but for some reason just was like, nah, I'm not gonna.
No, I'm gonna
defend it. I'm gonna have a tag team match. It's a 6-man tag team match.
8-minute multi-man. What other is there? What title is defended?
The women's match.
The women's title is the only title defended in the whole show.
Correct, sir.
Lord.
Yeah.
If I had paid for this pay-per-view, I would be pissed.
Yeah, it was the most TNA show ever. Yeah, it really was. You know, it started off so well, and then just
it really did start off promising.
But you know what? It had in the first match with the tables kind of collapsing by themselves. I think that was like
the Saints were there, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a portent to be like, we're in for some stuff. You know, we're in for some stuff.
You know what? We think it started off well, but that's only because they were like, "Oh, Motor City Machine Guns, amazing!"
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you know, Senshi was probably sitting there seething the whole time as well, going, "I should be opening the show. I should be closing the show. I'm leaving the show.
I'm involved in all these feuds. I'm clearly a central part of all these. Every one of these. Why wasn't I in the Gail Kim Awesome Kong match? I'm a central part of that feud.
Why does the rap get a lick and I don't?
I have very strong opinion. I am Dustin Rhodes' darkest manifestation.
They should have made him Rellik, which is Killer Spell backwards.
I am Rellik, which is Senshi, spelt inverted.
Oh my god! You know, between Lance Hoyt's Stram Stamp and Senshi in general,
I am Lance Hoyt's Stram Stamp.
Oh, it's so entertaining. It's so entertaining. Like there's just.
I bet you. So the briefcases in the Feast or Fired match weren't actually. I was about to say Feast or Famine match. That's the Irish intergenerational trauma in me.
That's fair.
I was about to say the briefcases in the Feast or Fired match weren't opened on the show, which I
no, they weren't. They would do that. They would do that later. Yeah,
on Impact or whatever. Yeah, or whatever it was called.
They would then open them every other time. I think this is the first time they just didn't.
Yeah, because that's such blue balls. You're
it
like,
is, yeah.
Oh, open the box! You made me watch the stupid boxes match. Now open the boxes.
I want to see who got fired.
But I bet you, if they were to open the boxes, fucking Senshi would have popped out of one of them.
Oh my god, you know what? He's just hilarious.
Yeah,
I mean,
because he's involved in everything.
In everything.
Senshi actually walked out of TNA. It actually wasn't even anything to do with Samoa Joe. He walked out of TNA because of the Montreal Screwjob. That's what it was.
That's what it was. He had very strong opinions on it.
Very strong opinions.
He was the one feeding Samoa Joe all the lines in the end. Oh, Senshi. I don't even know how you could get into it. It's too funny. So when you go back, I'm actually just flicking through the Feast of Fire match here, and I'm like, how are you so upset about nothing that involved you? Like, the match, I don't know. If you guys know, I have opinions on Senshi, because he probably has opinions about you.
Whether you know it or not.
Whether you know or not. He's listening to this pod. He's probably one of those guys that has like Google alerts set up about their name. He's like, oh, it's a me.
We need one of those Senshi buries the world podcasts. You know where they bring a wrestler on and they just name all these different wrestlers and they just say if he was dickhead or cool. You know, they need that with Senshi, but instead of all the wrestlers, it's just all the people in the world. All 7 billion of us. What about Pahat Majiri from India? Fucking wanker. Like,
oh man, what
about Tommy O'Reilly from Carlo? Sound lad, sound.
It's just the wildest part of this whole thing because it really has everything. It runs the whole gambit. You have Vince Russo involved. You have wrestlers not turning up. You have nonsense. You have more nonsense. You have bad matches. You have a good match in there, 1 or 2 good matches. And then the most crazy part of the whole thing is Senshi walks out. I'm done with this. You know what it is? It's like that bit in The Simpsons where Homer stands up and goes, "This family's held me down long enough. I'm going to clown college." And Bart's like, "I don't think any of us expect him to say that."
You know what?
That's probably the reaction backstage.
maybe Senshi just saw this whole fucking disaster of a pay-per-view, and then the next day Russo went, "Look, anyone who disagrees with what we did in the main event can leave." And Senshi was like, I couldn't give maybe it's the opposite. Maybe he couldn't give a shit about the main event, but he's like, I just need the fuck out of here.
And you know where he'd go in the very next year?
Where?
To WWE.
Oh.
To be the rookie for Lay Cool.
What?
Yeah, he was the rookie. Sorry, not the rookie. He was the rookie for Lay Cool, and he'd win NXT when it was a game show.
Jesus,
have you not seen this entire period?
No, wrestling's so weird.
Oh man, we need to. Oh, that's it. We're going to do an arc with
NXT arc.
NXT arc. Oh, the dark times. The dark times.
NXT dark. Come here. So I don't know if you have to look it up or if you know offhand, but the Feast are fired. Who got it then?
Sorry,
what was in each of the boxes?
Hold on. We're not done yet. Do you know how many times he would return to TNA?
Senshi.
Yeah. Well, as different characters, low key or whatever. You know how long how many times he would return? 4 times. 4. He would leave and come back.
How did he leave? Exactly. How did he leave enough to?
He just would leave and then come back.
That's like whenever people say, "I'm the 17-time world champion." I'm like, "But that just means you lost it 17 times."
No, I'm amazed that they're like, they put up with him for so long. They're like, "All right, come on now, you scamp." Gotta get out there.
But they had to keep bringing him back because he's such a central character in every single storyline.
Also, he would be the motion capture and voice for Suicide, the video game character.
Oh, in the video game. Oh, even that was Christopher Daniels, wasn't
it? The character was, but in the game.
So why didn't they just have him do the?
I don't know, but it gets so much better.
TNA.
It gets so much better. His personal life, like you guys need to read.
Total nonsense. Ah!
You need to read about his You need to read his Wikipedia, gang. I'm not going to repeat it, but it's quite wild. He's, you know what, that podcast that you mentioned.
Yeah.
I'll put it this way: he's an avid Twitter user. So
Lord.
you can imagine what that's
That mean
like.
he has, given that he has an opinion on everything, are we suggesting that he perhaps has some controversial opinions?
He has
Perhaps about some minority groups?
he has all the controversial opinions. You name them.
He is where the controversial opinions come from.
You named them.
Yeah,
He has them.
whenever a belligerent young arsehole who's angry, but he doesn't know what they're angry about, needs a focus for his anger, he just goes to low key and he puts his hand in the bucket and he picks out, the Welsh.
Like, seriously, folks, read his Wikipedia. It's a wild journey. It's a wild journey. Oh God, it's too funny. Not what he says, just him as a person and the way he's nuked himself many times over and over again. But you answered what happened to Feast of Fired. I don't know. I'm going to look that up because I can't find it anywhere. I do not remember. So let's see. Hold on. Okay, here we go. So the contents of the Feast of Fired briefcase were revealed on December 13th episode of Impact. Are you ready? So we'd have a swerve, right? Christopher Daniels defeated Sensi for the briefcase. Okay, so prior to revealing,
Beated him. I thought he walked out.
No, hold on. This would be directly after. So this is he obviously lost on his way out.
He was
prior.
He obviously he had to walk out from the locker room to the front door, but that takes you past the ring. So while he was going past the ring, he had himself one more L.
So Scott,
he had one more match. One more L.
So prior to the invasion, Scott Steiner defeated fellow briefcase holders Daniels, PD Williams, and BG James to decide to either switch the briefcase or take another, or to take a $50,000 buyout. Now, that's the one I'd go for. That's the smart money, right? However,
get $50,000.
You can do a buyout. So
where you have to buy out of it with 50,000.
No, you give them the briefcase.
Give you 50,000.
Correct.
Yeah, zero. Absolutely no. That's a no arsher. You could make that decision with your fucking kneecap.
So Steiner chose to switch his briefcase with Williams. Obviously. Williams' new and Steiner's old briefcase were then open, awarding Williams a future TNA World Heavyweight Championship match. James's briefcase was next, giving him a future TNA World Tag Team Championship opportunity with a partner of his choice. Steiner's new Williams' old briefcase as well as Daniel's briefcase were open simultaneously, awarding Steiner a future X Division match. And unfortunately, Christopher Daniels got the pink slip. Now, I do remember what happened next. Daniels would then disappear for a while and come back as Curry Man.
I was going to say Suicide.
Come back to Suicide eventually.
Slip as well, didn't he?
He did, yeah. So this is what
I'm learning the TNA lore.
So with Daniels, anytime Daniels wanted to change up his gimmick, they just fire him and then he'd come back to something else. So, I mean, it's a way to do it, but
honest to God, you know what I think would have been better? For Steiner to swap with your man. I mean, any sane person would just take the 50 grand. But for Steiner to swap with your man, and like I said earlier, for Steiner to get fired, but to just refuse to be fired.
No, here's another thing, right? Senshi walked out and lost anyway. Surely what would have made him more sense is give him the briefcase that got him fired, and in that way you can explain where Senshi went.
Because all the TNA fans were going, where's Senshi?
No, but that's the thing. It's like they had an opportunity for someone who was actually unhappy with the company and was leaving anyway, and you're like, you have to do a match with him. Why don't you just give him the briefcase? No, we're not going to do that. We're going to fire Daniels. Okay.
So post the Montreal screw job, Vince actually had a big meeting where he got everyone together. No, this is real. This is
Okay, this is real,
setting up
okay.
a gag or anything.
Okay.
He literally who's like anyone
I'm
who's not
I'm
happy.
still expecting Senshi to just pop out.
No, where he went, anyone who's not happy can leave. And apparently Mick Foley did for a wee while. Mick Foley walked out for a few days, but then he was talking to Brett, and Brett was like, look, there's no point in you losing your contract and your career, and you have a wife and kids and stuff. So Mick Foley went back. But you see that move, that anyone's not happy, they can walk out. You can make that, like, if you're like a huge company and there's no other like options. But man, if you're 2007 TNA, you can't really pull the if you want to leave you can leave move,
But to be fair, it was Russo that pulled it, so he was probably like, let's break out the old WCW bag of tricks. Or the old WWE bag of tricks, because he was there at the Screwjob as well, wasn't he? So
yeah, I don't think he was involved in it.
no, but he was like in WWE at the time, so
Yeah. Pretending that he invented Stone Cold Steve Austin.
Oh man. So look, that was Turning Point 2007. Martin, what would you give this out of hold on. Let's do a new rating system. Let's do a rating system, right?
If this show was a rat, how many times would you lick
You
it?
lick the rat.
You can lick the rat a maximum of 5 times.
So is 1 bad or is 5 the best?
I don't
They're the same
know.
thing. So-
Darragh.
Okay. Okay, hold on. Oh, have it is. 1 is like the best because you only have to lick a rat once. But 5 is like really bad. It's because you had to lick a rat 5 times.
You have to lick a rat 5 times.
Yeah. Okay.
This was 4.
Oh my god.
4 because it is an absolute mess of a show, but there are some things on it that are look. No match ever gets above average.
No, it doesn't. No.
0. But
The tag match gets pretty close, though, to be fair.
Yeah, it's between the tag match and between the Gail Kim Awesome Kong match for the match of the night.
For sure.
None of them are like they're not going to be in anybody's best of list. I
don't know.
But there are things.
Anytime I get to see Black Rain, I'm happy.
But there are things on this pay-per-view that, I mean, the lunatic Black Rain promo alone,
yeah,
is worth the pay-per-view fee, which is 0 because it's on YouTube.
It's on YouTube.
But that alone is worth watching it. The Samoa Joe just going off it's kind of one of those things that it's like not a great match or anything, but kind of one of those moments of wrestling history you hear about, about, but it's kind of nice to actually see it.
Yeah, that's true.
The constant hilarity of how they deal with Scott Hall, who is not showing up. Stop showing the Scott Hall video packages. He's not going to heroically come in the door in the next 30 seconds. He has food poisoning from cocaine.
Oh my god!
So this is one of those shows that if you're doing a podcast, it's worth watching to review. If you have a group of friends around and you're drinking, and you're like, there's no point in putting on a really good pay-per-view because nobody's watching it. But for an absolute nonsense piss take, this is great. The women's match is not the Gail Kim, the ODB, which is one dirty bitch. Match is again one of those so bad you kind of have to see it matches. So there is nothing here is good, but there is stuff here that's worth seeing, maybe from like a historical perspective.
It's one of those shows, in my opinion, that just keeps on giving because you forget about it, and then randomly you're scrolling through Facebook and you're reminded that it exists. And from every point of it being, them promoting Scott Hall to the fact that they're like on the poster, they promote Jesus Messias, who isn't on the show, makes it even funnier. It's one of those shows where you're like, it is truly the start of the decline of TNA wrestling, which they would eventually fix.
I guarantee
15 years later.
The whole way through the main event, they had an intern.
And watched in the door.
And his finger was just hovering over the Scott Hall music button. They were still like, he's gonna show up halfway through the main event and we'll play the music and it'll be a big, like, it's definitely gonna happen. I was like, nah.
See, because
he's nostril deep in hookers.
See, that's kind of how Randy Savage came out, like a very similar way, but obviously Randy Savage and Scott Hall are not the same person. But yeah, you have to hand it to them in a way. God loves a trier, and they really believed that it was going to happen, but they didn't learn the lesson.
I say, to every wrestler on this night who had to either work a match they weren't supposed to, or had to change up their own matches, or just had to go out and do, 2 minutes of live TV with no pre-warning or anything, like every single one of them, fair play to them. Samoa Joe, they gave him 2 minutes of live TV, just buried the whole company. But from the performer's point of view, no shade on any of them.
No.
But yeah, this thing's a fucking mess.
Yeah. And I think it puts into perspective where my tolerance for things comes for, particularly when, like, I'm, what do you call it? The TNA PTSD?
PTNASD.
It's because of stuff like this, where I'm like, oh, I call it the TNA sense. Where it's like, I've seen this before. This is going to go bad. And then it does. It's because, I've seen it before. And it's just like lessons weren't learned. Here's the thing. It is like the most absurd version of it, because there was no strong hand to be like, let's not hire Scott Hall. That's a bad idea. Kevin Nash was like, oh, my buddy's going to get a rub and going to get paid and it's going to be awesome. And it wasn't. Poor Eric Young, who was still bleeding from his earlier match.
Yeah, look, apparently his arm is genuinely fucked up. Like his arm's injured. You can see him through the match, like even when the camera's not on him, he's like grabbing his arm and
his head as well, because he obviously bladed earlier on in the night. But your heart just go out to them, because like they're trying to make it work, but they're constantly undermining themselves. So I mean, you can get where Senshi's coming from, but at the same time, he wasn't involved in it. It's like, it wasn't like it was, Kurt Angle being like, this is ridiculous, this would never happen anywhere else, or AJ Styles. It was literally Senshi. He was like, yeah, I agree too. And then walks out. It's like, okay.
But I'm just looking it up here. Apparently, he went on then in later years. He would do a lot of work for Pro Wrestling Guerrilla, but apparently he walked out of PWG over Brexit.
And he walked out of WDB over like, cool. It was just his gimmick. It's what he did. He was like, I'm leaving. Like,
yeah.
Okay, see you later.
Yeah. Apparently he left WCW over the Iraq War. It was just, he's just having none of it.
None of it. Despite the fact that he wasn't wrestling on both those wars.
Bang, yeah.
Time traveled.
He
knew
divorced
they were
his wife because his neighbor had an affair. So.
Oh my god, I love that I just discovered this in Senshi. It's so wonderful,
It's amazing. I think that needs to become like an ongoing gimmick now, like from now on. Whatever we're. Do you know what? We'll introduce a new tier on the Patreon.
Oh my god! Yes,
the Senshi tier. It's where you donate a tenner to any other Patreon except ours.
You know what? Senshi heard about the CM Punk thing in AEW and then went in and attacked the muffin shop, or went to a donut shop.
He bit Ace Steel.
He pissed. He kicked in a random door.
Oh, killed a random dog.
Oh my god, he's so funny. Yes, okay, the Senshi tier. I'm actually going to add that. So yeah, you give 10 or 2 a
Senshi
random
tier will be our most successful tier because you donate to the Senshi tier by donating to any Patreon anywhere in the world that is not ours. The Senshi tier has billions of euro in it.
It can be anything else.
We just have no way to access it.
No. Something that doesn't involve us at all.
Yeah. All these accounts, nothing to do with us. We can't access them.
No.
But we are technically billionaires.
There you go. It's the Senshi way. Stick your nose in everyone else's business. Oh, God. So, Martin, with that being said, is a final word on Turning Point 2007?
Look, it's on YouTube. It's not going to cost you anything except time, which is a finite resource. So it really depends how much you value your time. But for if you are wrestling like a proper, like a wrestling, not just a fan of one company, if you're a wrestling fan and you enjoy kind of, unfortunately, the whole, like you say, the name here is unfortunate because it is Turning Point, and by everything you've told me, this is something of a turning point for TNA. It's worth watching as a whole, as an experience, but do not do it with a couple of drinks, do it with friends, do it with like, oh lads, let's take the piss out of this. Do not settle in and sit down for 3 hours of top wrestling action.
Yeah, if you're expecting some 5-star matches or even something that would equal
3.5, nah, not gonna happen.
No, if you're expecting something that's like, on point with like a really good episode of Raw or just a standard episode of Dynamite, you're gonna be very disappointed. You're gonna be very disappointed because the wrestling is not there. It shows up and says hey sometimes, but it's more for like the complete nonsense of it. And also, to be honest with you, watching the thumbtack spots are pretty cool.
Thumbtack spots are pretty cool. Dustin Rhodes won't stop licking his rat. Legendary. Kurt Angle, why have you been deep breathing with my wife? Amazing.
It's like there's a handful of gold inside just nonsense, but it's kind of like someone's picked up, some money. When you're at an Irish wedding, they do a gushy and they throw money everywhere. It's kind of like that, but they threw it into like a field that has stingers everywhere. You're like, I don't want to put my hand there, but there's a €2 in there that I want. It's
actually the perfect match for WWE fans because everything except the rest, like everything is notable except the wrestling. Like you can watch the vignettes, you can watch the interviews, I think you just skip through the wrestling. Like it's perfect.
It's the Undertaker
for modern WWE fans.
It's the Undertaker effect, where you've watched a video package, you're like, it was awesome, and then you watch it, you're like, oh good lord.
Yeah, imagine you saw a highlights of this show that was just the good parts of the MCMG match, not the finish. Just the titillation
of the Feast of Fire,
of the Velvet Love, the titillation of the Feast of Fire. Oh my god! Whatever floats your boat. The titillation of the Velvet Love ODB Arshathon is literally just an Arshathon. Like ODB gets a wedgie that is never resolved. Like when you get a wedgie and your instinct is to pull the material out of there. ODB just leaves it
leaves it in
the whole match. She's like, no, my arse is hungry and tonight it's eating panties. Like I said, the angle promos are pretty good. James Storm's refusal to believe that you can access beer not through Eric Young is phenomenal.
Eric Young is the vehicle in which you get beer.
This doesn't happen on this show. This happened on this podcast. But finding out that Petey Williams becomes little Petey Penis Pump is amazing. Look, there's reasons to watch this, but none of them are wrestling.
No, but I would say, look, if you're looking for something to watch that's vaguely Christmas themed, and then they all of a sudden drop it,
yeah, I mean, it happens on the 2nd of December Eve,
which of course is the most important day of Christmas.
It's the most important. It's the day Jesus was 23 days away from completing gestation.
Hold on a second. Actually, I'm looking up if it's an important day. What is it? I don't think it is. No,
it's probably like Saint Dingus's day or something.
No, but there's no as related to Christmas. There's no like Christmas meaning. It's just a day.
Yeah. Well, you should really be looking up December 1st or December 1st.
Yes, because
it's December 2nd Eve, which is December fucking 1st.
Okay. Yeah. There's. It's still just December 1st. I tell you one thing, right? You have to hand it to Vince Russo. The nonsense that was working in his brain at some point. I mean, it's definitely there.
Oh, like, do you think was that like a joke, or was he just like, oh man, it'd be really great if this pay-per-view was happening on Christmas Eve? And they
was like, let's do it. Let's work with it.
It would be great, but unfortunately, it's not happening on Christmas Eve. Christmas Eve is 3 weeks away, and he was like, yeah, it would be pretty cool if it was happening on Christmas Eve. Yeah, it would, but we say, it's not.
But they never.
Pretty cool if it was, though.
But they never mentioned it again. They never mentioned that it's Christmassy. It's literally just the video package, and that's it. It's not like a Christmas episode, or the Feast of Fire would make more sense when they do it subsequently, around Thanksgiving, because it's kind of a Thanksgiving theme.
Yeah, but there's, like you say, there's not even in previous years they had the barbed wire Christmas tree, and this is their last pay-per-view of the year. There's no more TNA pay-per-views.
No, Genesis. Hold on, let's see. I think Final Resolution is on, and then there's Genesis. So they do have one more. They have one more in January, but
in January, yes. This is their last one.
Final one for the year, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. But that is the least of all the mysteries that this show offers.
Oh my god, it's so funny. So look, folks, we're gonna leave it there. I think this show has gone longer than the pay-per-view, which is pretty funny. But and to be fair, 40 minutes for that is probably us talking about Rellik
and Rellik.
Then the rest of it about Tomko. So guys, if that's what you love, because that's what we like, that's the whole reason we do the show, to talk about Rellik, Tomko, and Black Rain. There's no other reason. We'll be back next week. I don't know what we're going to cover, Martin. We'll probably figure out something. But if there's anything you guys want us to cover, please let us know in the comments below, on our social media. You can also email us as well. We'll do anything once we can access it, and preferably if it's free. Because funny enough, the WWE Network is closing in a month, actually, or the end of this month. Martin, I don't know if you're still subscribed to the network or not, but I got a very interesting email. Did you what's your status?
No, I haven't been with the network for I don't know how long.
So,
but I saw the email. Yeah.
Did you see the email? Yeah. So
I saw it on social media.
So anyone that's not in Europe, I'd imagine, or particularly in UK and Ireland, we've had the network consistently. It never swapped over to Peacock. It never, went away for us. It's been there. However, because WWE is going to Netflix, they basically were like, look, we're going to not charge you this month, and you get it for free because it's closing in January, and then you have to buy a Netflix subscription. So if you hung out with the network for as long as I did, my WWE is free this month. So that's pretty sound. But also, one of the weirdest emails I've ever got from a provider being like, hey, we're finishing this up. Here's some free content. So yeah, that was wild. So If it's on the WWE Network, we probably won't be able to watch that for a while until it goes to Netflix. So that's a caveat. If you can find it, let us know. But for everybody here at the Wrestling Rewind, my name is Darragh O'Connor. For Martin, see you next week.
Like a rat!
Thank you for listening to a Nerd to Know Media production.